We were able to keep it to a minimum by cutting out over $1 billion out of our utilities rates. And I can let Kevin get into some of the details on some of that. But yeah, we've had a pretty good run so far, and we want to keep going. So here. Yeah, like Nick said, we cut over $1 billion out of the utilities budgets, and things, energy efficiency and design site management programs are just some of them. $8 million we cut out of APS's marketing budget because for all intent and purposes, they are a monopoly utility. They have the certificated area. And if you're an APS customer, you don't have a choice of who your provider is. So why are they advertising to you? So we cut $8 million out of their budget, and the marketing person was out in the parking lot crying after the meeting because nobody had ever cut their budget before. They came in December, January of this year, and their energy efficiency and DSM programs, right? Those are the thermostats and the free giveaways. They were spending $84 million a year of their ratepayer dollars of us, our money, on these programs. And these are the programs like Nick talked about, the shade tree programs and thermostat programs and so forth. Well, they wanted to increase that up to $91 million a year. So instead, I dropped an amendment and I cut it to $40 million a year from $91 million. So I cut it down to $40 million and redirected the funds can only be used for low and fixed income individuals to help move the needle on programs that actually help move the needle. So things like insulation, weather stripping, windows, things that actually will help reduce the cost of energy. But we didn't stop there. We've done so much more. We talked about the Shade Tree program, Tucson Electric Power. They own the Unisource Energy up in the Flagstaff, Kingman area. So they came in with the Shade Tree program that they wanted to add, and that's where the utility gives away shade trees. And the intent is that these shade trees will help reduce, will shade the house or shade your business and help reduce your energy costs. And so I asked them, about this program. So I said, so are you bringing in mature trees? Is that what you're giving away? And they said, no, we're bringing in saplings. And I was like, okay, so in the 20 years, 25 years it's going to take them to mature and grow. I said, so what kind of trees are you giving away? And they said, mesquites and palo verdes. And I said, so the two trees that provide the least amount of shade in Arizona. I ride dirt bikes. I'm usually out here with you guys on the trails. And when I get hot, I don't find a mesquite or palo verde tree. I would rather hide in the shade of a saguaro because I can get more shade from a saguaro than I can from a palo verde or mesquite. So I said, are you providing, the mature trees? They said, no, they're just the saplings. I said, well, are you providing guidance to the consumer on where to plant these trees and how to maintain them? And they said, no. And so I said, so there's no accountability. You're just giving the consumers money away, and there's no accountability for that, so we killed the program. And so what was funny is that the media picked up on it, and the next day they ran it in the paper, and they called me the Lorax for killing the trees. And then Nick, to be funny, he was behind a car that had the license plate Lorax, so he took a picture of it and sent it to me. He says, hey, I found you driving out here. Yeah, we've done a lot of cool things. Anybody here ever heard of BlackRock Investments? Yeah, probably everybody. Anybody really like what they're doing? Yeah, well, when Trump the year that Trump was elected, back in about February of that year, they went to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission and said, hey, we want an exemption to allow us to invest as much money as we want in local utilities. And FERC kind of sat on it for a number of months, and then all of a sudden November rolled around and Trump was elected. That lit a fire under their butt, as you can imagine. So they went back to FERC and they said, we got to get this through right now. And luckily, us in the energy world picked up on that, and 26 other states' attorney generals basically decided to file suit
Except our state has a useless attorney general, so we picked up the battle instead. And we joined those 26 other states to push back on BlackRock. And for the most part, it worked. I think now they've been limited. We did have to go through some appeals and things like that, but we were pretty successful in pushing back on that because we don't want them to interject their DEI and ESG and Green New Deal and all of that in the utilities by buying majority shares in them. So we've been doing a lot of cool things at the federal level to fight for Arizona. We've been developing Western electricity markets where we can trade electricity. We have plenty of electricity in Arizona. We make darn sure our utilities are reliable. But if Oregon is in the middle of the summer and they don't need all their electrons and they can do it really cheaply, why wouldn't we buy that instead of generating it ourselves? So that's what we've been doing, but the big problem is we didn't want Oregon and Washington and California Green New Deal style policies to affect the rates over here because they have greenhouse gas taxes and all this other stuff. So we've been very involved in those discussions to make darn sure that the states that are imposing those fees are the ones that end up paying those fees in this market. So lots of good stuff that we've been doing on the federal level. I mean, we can go on forever. We can talk about Cholla, we can talk about nuclear, we can talk about natural gas. What do you guys think? Yeah.
What are you doing to deal with the ongoing electricity use of these data centers?
Data centers, great. Yeah, absolutely. So you've just spun up an hour conversation. I'll keep it short. Data centers. Arizona's actually had data centers for a long time. We've actually done pretty well with data centers. But one of the things Kevin and I did when we came in is started talking, and actually the data center, really the uprising of those data centers didn't start until just a couple of years ago when they really started getting serious about it. Let me start with a story from about 2 years ago. I was in Washington, D.C. in a regulators conference, and there were about 2,000 regulators from all over the country. And up on stage was Google. So they were talking about all these cool things like, hey, we want to partner with our utilities to bring new nuclear. And I raised my hand and said, hey, Google, and everybody's phone went off. No, just kidding. I said, you guys need the power, you guys have the resources, and you guys have the money to actually do this. Why don't you guys put your money where your mouth is and invest in small modular reactors or invest in the nuclear yourself, because it's not commercially viable yet. And what we're hearing as regulators is you want ratepayers, like residential ratepayers, to pay for your electricity generation services. And that isn't going to fly. I kid you not, I walked out of that room to high fives and handshakes because I was the only one that was willing to stand up to Google and say, we're not doing that for you. 6 months later, you see Google partnering with Kairos, you see Amazon partnering with X Energy, you see all of these big tech companies, including Microsoft, reopening 3 Mile Island, all on their own dime. So what that means is now we're trying to court them. We flip the script, right? Hey, go ahead, come here, but bring your own power. We don't want to provide it for you. We want you to do it. Now, we are also allowing them to pay the utilities to generate that power, but we have been saying for years now, growth needs to pay for itself. So what that means is, if they need a nuclear power plant to power their data center, go build it. You're also going to build the transmission and the substations and the transformers and all of that good stuff. You're going to pay for all of that. So none of those costs, absolutely $0, go back onto ratepayers. The best part is that a lot of these data centers, not only did they get the message, but they actually want to be good players in the communities that they're coming in. So they're actually going above and beyond. So we just approved an ESA down by Tucson where they're going to pay $40 million for a $25 million transmission infrastructure. The rest of that money gets put back to lower rates for the ratepayers. Same thing with Project Baccarat over north of Luke Air Force Base. We just approved that one. They said we're going to voluntarily give up all our tax incentives, even though they got taken away with this legislative session. Before that, they said we'll voluntarily give them up because we want to generate our own power. And we're only going to use 500 megawatts, but we're going to build 700 so that we can stabilize the grid around us. So they're giving us 200 megawatts of generation for free. So lots of good things that we're doing that not only are they actually going to pay for their own way, but they're actually helping to reduce rates. And there's lots of other ways they're doing it, but lots of good news on that front. Hopefully they're going to bring some small modular reactors to power that. Small modular reactors are on the way. We've been doing a lot of work. I was the vice chairman of that national organization for the nuclear subcommittee. We did a lot of work on how we're going to bring nuclear, not just to the United States, but specifically to Arizona. And Thursday, we have our third in a series of 4 workshops at the commission dealing with bringing nuclear to Arizona. And I can tell you that as a whole, this state is very nuclear friendly, and our 2 biggest bottlenecks to bringing nuclear are workforce development, because we lost all the talent over the last 50 or 60 years, and supply chain issues, because we don't build anything in the US anymore. So those 2 things are really where our bottlenecks are. The rest of it is bring it on in, but we want those first nuclear power plants to be put in by the tech companies, because those are the ones that are the expensive ones. We want to be 4th or 5th or 6th before we start allowing our utilities to pay for it. That way it keeps your rates low. Don't worry about it.
So these data centers are making up the difference in electricity. Why is APS asking for 14% rate increase?
Great question.
Good question.
Why am I, who uses 238 kilowatts a month, how much cheaper can I get? Getting hit with $78 for an electric bill, and then being told, well, you're gonna get a 14% increase, and you need to lower your usage. I can't lower my usage anymore.
No, nobody can. I'll tell you, so the question, if you're online and you couldn't hear, the question's about APS's 14% increase that they're requesting. I can tell you that since Nick and I have been at the commission, no utility's ever gotten what they've asked for. They can ask for 100% if they want. Typically it's around 9.2 to 9.6, somewhere in there, 9%-ish. But what you have to remember is that what they're asking to recover is capital that they extended like 2 years ago. So in Arizona, we have what they call a historic test year. And so, so the utility over like a year long, they look at all their receipts and everything else, and they bring that in. And they file an application with the commission. And the commission will vote yes or no to proceed with the application if it was all correct, all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed. And then an administrative law judge gets assigned to the case. So it's a fully litigated case. It's just not the 5 of us sitting up on the dais making a decision. It takes about a year to go through a full-blown litigated rate case. And so it's a judge, it's a prosecutor, which is our staff, and interveners. You could be an intervener if you'd like. And then you have the defense attorneys, which is the utility. You get to cross-examine witnesses, so they get to drill the CEO, the CFO, the vice president, senior vice president. So they can call whoever they want to the stand, and they can just drill them. And so, so they get questioned. Our ALJ will question. We'll send questions to our ALJ to ask as well to the judge, for them to ask also. And then the judge will come back with, at the end, so that's about a 8 to 9 month process. The judge will come back after he or she reads through all the testimony. They'll come back and issue what they call a recommended order and opinion. We call it a ROOP. And so the recommended order and opinion will come out. Our staff, our engineering staff, will go out and they'll crawl through every piece of equipment that the utility is asking to recover on. So so like in APS's rate case right now, it's online. You can go, you can Google Corporation Commission, look at current rate cases, APS, just type in APS, and you'll pull it up and find their application. So if you look at it, they're wanting to recover costs that were spent on computers and software and vehicles and tools and pipelines and wires and poles and vehicles. I mean, it's, well, they have labor too, right? They're gonna recover their labor. I mean, they're a business, so they're there to make a profit. And so but the Constitution in Arizona says that the utilities are allowed to recover their cost to provide service. And so everything that they use to provide service to customers, they're able to apply for recovery. So we're the ones, at the end of the day, we look at what the ALJ's recommended, we look at what the Residential Utility Consumer Advocates Office recommends, and we look at what our utility staff recommends. Now, when we first took office in 23, the rate case from 2021 ended up in a lawsuit from the previous commission because they denied the APS's ability to recover the cost of the SCRs, the scrubbers, that the EPA mandated be put on the Four Corners generating plant. And so anytime you mandate something, that's an automatic refund to the utility. That's why we eliminated mandates, because when you mandate it, guaranteed they're going to recover their cost on it. And so we don't want to mandate they do anything. And so, but that previous commission had denied their ability to recover their cost on the SMRs, and they arbitrarily set their ROE down to like 8%, 8.2%, which is pretty low in the industry.
Unheard of is the word.
Yeah, well, that's what the term the judge uses is unheard of. So APS sued the ACC, and it made it up to the appeals court. The appeals court judge came back and sided with APS and said, Commission, you can't deny something that was mandated, so they should be allowed to recover that cost of the scrubbers, of the SCRs, but you cannot arbitrarily set their return on equity, because you have the Bruco office, you have your own staff, and you have the ALJ that provides you a window, and you must fix something within that window, and it has to be justifiable in a court of law as to why you selected that percentage return on equity. And so we have to look at all sides of what has Bruco done, what's our staff done, what the judge has done. Bruco always comes in really low. The judge comes in more on the high side, and our staff comes in the middle. And we're somewhere typically between Bruco and our staff. Because once the RU comes to us, we get our turn at looking at everything. And so we'll go in, and that's where, like, board of director fees, you hear things board of directors work for you as the ratepayer. They don't. They work for the shareholder. But before Nick and I got on the commission, board of directors were allowed to recover their costs in our rates. So we cut all of the board of director fees and all of their benefits. We cut all of that out of the rates. And so we will look at the application that comes in from the judge, and we'll do things like that. We'll look at it and go, wait a minute, why are they trying to recover the cost for board of directors? So we'll cut that out. So we'll make cuts ourselves and then reduce their ROE based off of that. And so usually it is, like I said, somewhere between a 9.2 and a 9.6 is typically where it falls. But again, it's, you'll hear people say, well, just say no. Just tell them no, you can't do it. Well, we can't, because they're allowed to recover their costs per the Arizona Constitution. So for us to be able to say no, you'd have to open the Constitution up and strike all that language from the Constitution.
And just to add a little bit of color to that, kind of what he's saying is all of the stuff that they're recovering is stuff that they've already spent. So none of this new data center stuff has actually hit the rate case yet. So you're talking about that 14% rate case. It has nothing to do with data centers, because those didn't exist 2 or 3 years ago. You also mentioned something that the media likes to pick up on, and it's a very big red herring to a certain degree, and that is, well, they made $600 million of profit last year. We don't control that, okay? What we control is the ROE, the amount they're allowed to return. Most small businesses, they'll make 30 to 50% return. We allow our utilities between 9 and 10% generally. So if they make $6 million, it's within that 9% window. Usually, now that 9% window is a max. Last year, APS only made 7%. So they made well under what they could have made. But they did make $600 million. That's a good thing. And the reason it's a good thing is because what money do they use to repair storm broken poles and transformers when they explode? things of that nature. That's coming out of that money. They need to have that liquid capital in order to run the business. If they don't, that makes for an unreliable utility company. And the only thing worse than high rates is not getting to pay rates at all because it doesn't exist. So, yeah.
What is the status of Arizona's percentage of the Colorado River? And I would like to know about the solar farms that are planned for Monongahela.
I'll cover
We
the,
don't want.
yeah, I'll cover the water and let Nick cover the solar. So water, so it's gonna get really interesting really quick. Well, not really quick, it's already interesting, and it's gonna last a while because it's gonna go through the court system. So, you know, you hear in the media, and we all know that Colorado is drying up. And right now, the interior, so there's this big battle between the upper basin states and lower basin states. We're one of the lower basin states, and us in Nevada and California are saying, hey, upper basin states, give us some of your water. You've got more than you can use. And the upper basin states are saying, nope, that's a you problem. We're keeping our water for us. And so Colorado is the main polluter up there. They don't want to give up any of their water. And so, so we're seeing our lake levels here drop. And so the interior stepped in and said, not to make a decision, but ordered that Flaming Gorge Dam be opened and allow some of the water to flow down into Lake Powell so that they can fill Lake Powell to keep it above the level where it gets to what they call the dead zone, which makes it so that it can't generate power. So they want to put water from Flaming Gorge into Lake Powell. It's pissed off Colorado because that's their water. Who cares? But they don't plan to push a bunch of that water down the Colorado into Lake Mead, and eventually into the CAP. So they're talking about a 70% cut in Arizona off of the CAP, which is a massive cut. Arizona's already taken about a 30% cut, and so to take another 40% is a pretty big deal. You have cities like Scottsdale, for example, who 70% of their water is Colorado water. So you cut 70% of their 70%, Scottsdale's gonna be screwed. That's why they're having conversations now about the toilet to tap, which is like grossing everybody out, and it's become a big firestorm in Scottsdale. The good news is that our private utilities here are sitting pretty well. Our aquifers in Arizona are still fairly healthy. And so, you know, in Arizona, we've got surface water, we got aquifers. Our surface water is our canals and our rivers. And then we have the aquifer. So the SRP watershed's still really healthy. We're in the El Nino year, so it's supposed to be a very wet summer, which is good for us. That means we'll be able to stockpile water into our reservoirs and eventually push that into the aquifers as well. The bad news is we really need a lot of snow up in Colorado, which didn't get this past winter. So we need a lot of snow up there to really, you know, push water into Lake Powell and into Lake Mead for our long-term stability. But it's going to end up in court, and so it's going to be upper basin states fighting the lower basin states and vice versa. At the end of the day, we're still going to lose because we are the redheaded stepchild in Colorado. That's just how the water rights were negotiated back in the day when whiskey was for drinking and water was for fighting. So we're still going to get screwed at the end of the day regardless. It's just going to cost us a bunch of money to fight it in court. It would be easier if the Interior were to step in. I know that the president stepped in and ordered California to do some stuff, which at the end of the day kind of screwed us because again, we're still the junior receiver of Colorado River water. So even if you make California take cuts, it's still going to impact us because we also have to take cuts. And so anything that the Interior Department does unless they explicitly say go back and renegotiate the water rights, Arizona's gonna get screwed at the end of the day.
And to answer your solar question, this has been an interesting topic on this campaign trail nonetheless, but here's the fundamental problem with solar and wind and all renewables. We don't regulate it. We, ARS 40 says we have regulatory authority over thermal generation, it says nothing about non-thermal. So what that means is it's up to planning and zoning. They're the ones that get to choose if that's allowed or not. What we have said from day one is utilities, you're not going to build any more of it. But if a private developer on private land, or in this case, state trust land, because we have a governor that's allowing that, want to use private funds, they can build whatever they want, but that means the risk is on them, not on the ratepayers. And they have to bid that energy back into our utilities just like anybody else has to, and they have to meet the reliability and affordability requirements. One thing we've done the last 2 sessions is we've worked with Senator Frank Carroll to try to put in that ARS statute. It says that we regulate thermal generation. We wanted to put comma and non-thermal. And that would give us the ability to regulate that. It got all the way through the House, all the way through the Senate, both twice. And guess who vetoed it? Twice. Yeah. It wasn't the new governor we need to get in there. Yeah. Katie Hobbs had vetoed it twice. We're going to run it again until we get somebody that's willing to actually take that up and approve it. But yeah, we had no regulatory authority over that. The only touch point that we have is over the connection where they connect it to the grid. If they have to put power lines up that's over like a mile, then they have to come and they do what's called a certificate of environmental compatibility. They have to basically turn in a piece of paper that checks 9 boxes, and if they did them all, we have to approve it. One of the things that we did with the lava run out in eastern Arizona, there was a big hubbub because the developer and everybody didn't consult with the county, and the county and the state land department were all in a big hubbub. And we basically said, look, we can't approve any connection of power lines that's going to interfere with flight paths. That was one of the complaints we got. So you're going to have to get up, figure out a different way, but what we need you to do is go back to the drawing board, include the county specifically this time, and what that did was it bought the county some time to go have these discussions and really figure out what they're going to do. But ultimately, we're going to have to approve it. Once it gets to the point where the company's tired of messing with us, basically, they're going to take us to court and they'll win. So we're just dragging it out as far as we can to give them time to sort that out, and hopefully it's long enough that we get a new governor in and fixes these problems. So on state land, it's very difficult because Governor Hobbs has full authority over that. There's nothing we can do about that. Yeah, exactly.
Hi, this question is not only for Arizona, but it's for the utility providers throughout the United States. We need to insulate our power grid for an EMP, a dirty nuclear bomb. We're at war with Iran. Have they had nuclear tips and they sent them over? If we don't have power and everything gets wiped out, we're dead. We're done. And we need to insulate our power grid. I mean, it's crucial. We're going to die if we don't get this done. And I'll pay more than my utilities to get this done.
So that's one thing that's always at the top of our mind, and you'll see that there's a lot being done to do that. All of the boxes on the ground with transformers are all now encased in steel, and that's EMP protection. Not much we can really do about the power lines themselves, and unfortunately those power lines are what go directly into your home and into your TV. Having spare parts on hand, and being able to do some turnaround pretty quick and get the grid back up and running is really where our focus is, because we cannot, it's just physically impossible to completely harden the grid. Certainly not without raising rates 1,000 times, and no one wants that. Yeah, that's cost prohibitive for most people, which is the problem, but it's also interconnected, right? So the entire United States is interconnected. It's really tough to isolate and every single component of the grid. But what we can do is we can isolate connections across the various grid components. So we can isolate ourselves from the Midwest, for example. We can do some circuit breaker openings, things like that. those types of things we can do and we are doing, but we gotta be, it's a juggling act is really what it is. I think the best policy on that is don't piss off Iran, and if we do, make sure they don't launch anything. Is that the hook?
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you all very much. We'll stick around for a while. We're happy to talk about this stuff all day long, so thank you. I'm Kevin. No, I'm Kevin today.
Thanks, guys.
We now have Mary Ann Woods is going to speak about poll inspectors.
Hi, everybody. I am one of the poll workers for our local voting center. And this year, unfortunately, we are really short of people. Well, not as bad as we could be. Just lost my speech. So what I'm here for is to ask if some of you civic-minded people could think about helping out at our poll center. We need one poll book worker, which is a clerk who, when a voter comes in, they're already registered. They come in and they check them in and make sure everything's correct so that they can get their ballot. And we also need a ballot judge. Every center has 2 judges, a Republican and a Democrat. It's a kind of a checks and balance thing. So we need a Democratic person that will serve as a ballot judge. We also need a couple more people just to work as alternatives or alternates. They basically won't even be called upon unless someone comes down sick and just can't come in. So I'm hoping that you will think about it, and I have some information. It's real simple. If you would like to be a poll worker, I'll post this somewhere in the back there. Take a picture of it and you can see how you can sign up. But you just go to yavapai.votes.gov, click on the poll worker tab, and then click on the fill in the application. It's real quick and easy. So I hope that some of you will step up and help us out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Ann. I have Wiley Klein is going to come up and speak to us. He's running for the county supervisor. He's ran a couple of times, and let's try to get him in this time. Thank you.
All right, take me just a minute to get myself situated. How's everybody doing tonight? Good? Quick question before I get going, because we're allotted 20 minutes to talk. I assure you, you do not want to hear me talk for 20 minutes. How many are going to have questions? I'm running for District 2 County Supervisor. So how many questions are we going to have out there? Anything? Talk about fishing at Lake Pleasant, something to burn up time? Nothing? I'll probably burn about 10 or 15 minutes if there's no questions, and we can get the evening moving, and everybody can go home a little earlier this evening. All right, again, my name is Wiley Klein. To begin with, I want to let y'all know I am not a politician, nor do I want to be. This is just a job I'm applying for that I think I could do a really good job in helping. I really do. And as was said earlier, I ran in 2020 when Mr. Thurman retired. And then I ran in 2024 when I knew that Mr. Gregory was going to be resigning. Wasn't successful either time. So then went for the appointment last April in 2025 with Supervisor Jenkins. She was successful, and that was the end of my bid. I wasn't going to run anymore. due to circumstances beyond our control, Supervisor Jenkins is going to step down and not seek the seat. So I threw my hat back in the ring again. Third time, last time, unless I'm fortunate enough to get elected. If I get elected, I'll keep going. I'll stay for quite a while. Till you guys are done with me and won't be leaving. Excuse me. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a fourth generation Arizona native, born and raised next door in Gila County. Raised on ranches pretty much my whole life. What a lot of people don't know about me is the majority of my education I was homeschooled. And this was a shock when we moved to town. I don't know, I was probably around 11, probably 12. The schools actually test you to see if you can come into school and be at the grade that you're supposed to be. Had no idea that this was a thing. So my brother and I, we went in, I was testing into the 8th grade, he was testing into senior. We both tested into college. And the school really didn't know what to do with us. They wanted to hand us a diploma and have a nice day, see you later. I was thrilled, our mother not so much. So, needless to say, I did my 4 years in school and was bored the entire time. But had a great education. My mom did a great job. She was always afraid she wasn't doing a good job, so she went beyond, way beyond, and I thank her for it. After school, I went in, worked 2 seasons as a hotshot with the U.S. Forest Service. Worked out of Pleasant Valley. Some know it as Young, some know it as Pleasant Valley. And it took 2 seasons for me to figure out I did not want to be a hotshot. And at the time, now when our fire crews go out, they're only out 14 days, they come back. When I went out, and this is in the 80s, mind you went until the fires were out. So you might be gone 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. You didn't know how long it's gonna be gone. So like I said, 2 seasons of that, it was plenty for me. After that, I went to work for ADOT for a couple of years on road maintenance crew. And the first year I went from Young, I was working in Wickenburg in July. And it hit about 120, oh my God, degrees. I thought I was gonna die. So as soon as I could get out of Wickenburg work, I transferred to Payson. When I was in Payson, I got interested in law enforcement, joined the Gila County Sheriff's Office Reserve Program, and went to the academy. There I stayed until I retired in 2001. When I retired in 2001, I moved to the Verde Valley. I've been there for 25 years this year. And when I went over there, it was to build the 4-lane for 89A between Cottonwood and Sedona. I went over there to rent equipment. Had no idea why we was putting a 4-lane in there, but it didn't take very long to figure it out because, wow, the traffic on that 2-lane was absolutely horrible. So I did that and then ended up going to work for my father-in-law in the heating and cooling business. He owned his own business. I thought I'd try that out. Wasn't a fan of crawling in attics. I'm too fat for that. So I went back to running equipment. I ran equipment until just recently, in the last 3 or 4 years. And I went to work for the Yavapai Apache Nation as their production and safety supervisor in the ready mix plant. So I ran their ready mix division for them. Did that for a couple of years. Had a family member come down with cancer, and in that job, I wasn't able to just walk away. I was pretty much committed to it all the time. I did the scheduling, I did the ordering, I did the batching, I did everything for the plant. So I had to step down. When I did, I went to work for Builders First Source. Some of you know them. They bought out Proville. If you ever built Proville, I think that's the only one in Arizona they bought out. And then some mom and pop places. But they're the largest material distributor in the United States. We have over 600 locations. And right now I am their safety coordinator for the Northern Arizona market. So I go from Eager to Lake Havasu. So that catches you up on what I'm doing. And again, I worked for ADOT a couple times through the years. So with your supervisor job, you have to know a little bit about a lot of things. Not be a know-it-all, not anything like that, because I'm certainly not. If you ever ask me a question and I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I don't know. I'm not gonna blow smoke and come up with something that sounds good and walk away. I'll tell you I don't know, but I will get you the answer. And my time with ADOT, my time working construction, building roads, airports, whatever, gave me the knowledge of our infrastructure is horrible. Absolutely horrible. I know you guys have a lot of road problems down here unless they miraculously got fixed in the last couple of years, which I doubt. But we've had some improvements, they say. One was a $5 million improvement in my area up in Verde Valley. And by the time they were done, we had some shiny new guardrail and 4-foot shoulders. They didn't even touch the main traffic lanes. And I thought they'd go in at least mill and fill them, which is mill it out, put some new asphalt in, nothing. They came in, did a slurry seal coat. Did absolutely nothing to improve the traffic problem. And that was $5 million. Had another one just down the road, because we have a lot of semi-traffic this on the road. And they went down the road, did a mill and fill in a location that has surface water under the road. So these semis hauling out of the cement plant with 80,000, one right after the other, just bumps the road. And it keeps pumping. So they go in, spend, didn't even want to know how much money, putting a Band-Aid on that. So we'll be going in to fix it again in another couple of years, because they didn't fix it. But you have to know things like that. So when somebody comes to you with a project, you know to look at it and say, yeah, we're not spending the money on this, let's do it right. It might cost a little bit more, but we don't have to go back and fix it again. Because you're just throwing money. And that's one of the things I bring. Another thing is fiscal responsibility. I think our current board's doing a great job. And they are really watching our dollars. But having said that, I've been at some board meetings and some things have snuck through that shouldn't have been approved. And I have two definitions for coming to us for money. One's I need. Somebody comes from a department, manager, whatever, comes up and says, I need this, and here's the explanation. Whatever it may be, it doesn't matter. Okay, if it makes sense, you help them out. And then I have the I want section. And let's see, what's this, June? We're in the tail end of the I want section. It starts in May. Every department that has money left over comes up with their Christmas list. And it's an I want. It's not they need. They sit on that money until the end of the year and they blow it. They zero out their budget instead of turning it back to the treasury. I think that's ridiculous. You know, you shouldn't be blowing the money. If you need it, use it. If it's something you need, by all means, use it. If it's not something you need, turn it back. And I know when I was in law enforcement, we called it Christmas in July because that's when we get all the goodies. And they were afraid that if they turned any money back, they'd get cut on their budget. And that's not the truth. They don't. They didn't then, they don't now. If they put in a good, honest budget on what they need, they're gonna get it. Another thing we need to work on, this was a discussion the other night, is our development services, code enforcement. We have places that are absolutely atrocious and they're a health and safety problem that need to be cleaned up and the people need some help doing it. And in order to do that, we need to go through, the codes need rework badly. They've been there forever and they need rework, but we need to be careful about how we do it. Because it can certainly start restricting people very, very quickly on what they can and can't do on their property. And I'm not a fan of that. Also not a fan of raising taxes unless it's an absolute last resort and there's nothing else they can do. Then I'll vote for it. But other than that, no. And yes, I did have notes made for me because my campaign manager / my wife for 23 years says I get off topic, so I gotta have notes. Another thing that's a huge problem, probably down here as well. You guys don't have very many private wells. I don't think you're in water companies down here, right? And from what I see, that's a lot of fun. I won't even touch that area.
That's where everyone is, that have water
I heard that they switched it and had a whatever meeting over there today. So I wish they would. No, I wish they would have put it another day because you ladies work very hard and have had this out for a long time. So I wish it would have gotten moved so more people could come. But in the rest of the county, where they have wells, we're having a lot of problems with wells drying up. So we have to be smart about our growth. Not restrict it, not stop it, because in order to be prosperous, you have to have growth. The money's gotta come in. But we have to be very, very careful on where this growth is, how much there is, because our water is very, very crucial. And in some places running out. Through the years I've worked, I started drilling wells when I was 13, but working for my grandfather. So that's been, 46 years. Off and on, I've drilled wells and been in the water business, pumps, whatever. I've gone to homes where their wells have dried up and told somebody on a fixed income, we gotta move the rig in, it's $10,000–15,000. And they don't have the money. And we provided, water trailer, whatever, until they could get the means to pay to move the rig on. But that is not something I wish anybody would have to tell anybody. It's horrible. And one thing about our county, a lot of people don't know, the west side is pretty much one aquifer. Wells are pretty much the same depth. East side of the county is all over the place. They go from, our well's 150, about 153, 155. Look across the valley, they're 600, 700, 800 feet deep. Our neighbor that I can see across our property is 250 feet deep. 2 miles up the road, we have artesian wells that just run and run and run. Most beautiful water you ever saw. Good sweet water too. And then we actually have a thermal well over there where it's hot water coming out. So there is all kinds of aquifers, but they all need to be protected the same. It doesn't matter because it can run out. I've seen it. And the solar farm up the road, I can't help you. That's already been said and done. Otherwise, I certainly would help you because I'm not a huge fan. And I'm honestly not a huge fan of putting it on your house. We did, and it was the most miserable, biggest mistake we ever made in our life. Ended up costing us way more than if we just paid the bill. But no, we was gonna save some money. Boy, did that bite us in the ass. I can say that. I'm getting in trouble over there. But no, it's horrible, absolutely horrible. What it does is it takes up our area, takes away the habitat, takes away our grazing area for cattle, everything else. It's just all the way around a horrible idea. Data centers, I was waiting for one of you to ask and nobody did, on how much water they use. I don't know the exact amount, but those reactors gotta use a lot of water. No, very little? One of you's gotta have a number.
Very minimal these days. They got the message that they're gonna put data centers in the desert, they need to recirculate water.
How much is minimum?
Not a swimming pool for it, but it's all captured, so it's recycled.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Perfect. No, I was curious about that. Nobody asked about that chicken. Huh?
We got a $400 million bid right off TSMC, we're supposed to be doing, and they keep putting it off because they're worried about the water touch from the Colorado River.
Yeah,
So
that's a huge worry for everybody.
yeah, I mean, it's a real issue.
And it just is everywhere. I mean, we gotta watch it.
And just so that everybody knows, toilets and taps count.
That grosses me out even thinking about it. I know it's purified and by the time it goes through everything, it's cleaner than anything can be, but I'm sorry, I don't wanna know that. I'll go to the store and buy bottled water. It just,
We got a contract at the 90%.
oh, yuck. Yeah. I just, And it's something they need to do, I get it, you know, but I don't wanna be a part of it. Another thing I want to do for you, how has your representation been down here? And I'm not bagging on D at all. I'm not picking on you, I don't know how to do it without saying that. I am not picking on you at all. Aside from D. I wouldn't do that. A dead cat? Oh, yeah. Oh, cows. And I would have to look into this, and Supervisor Jenkins might have to actually answer, but when I worked for ADOT, it's ADOT's responsibility to clean up their own road. It's not anybody else's. So if you have cattle, if you have whatever hit within the county right away, then the county road department needs to get off their butt and come down and move it. Yeah. Oh yeah, I'd send somebody to go get that. Good. Not on private. Yeah, no, you should. And on private, if you have the owner's permission, you can go in and get it, that's all. But I wanna be, go ahead. I know.
We didn't hear a word she said. You stepped out of the camera.
Oh, yelled at both directions.
Don't want to offend anybody, but since Tom Thurman, we have not had anybody come down here consistently. They show no interest in Black Canyon City whatsoever.
I was actually at a meeting, I think it was Thursday night, I was at a meeting. Mr. Thurman was there. And one of my goals, if I'm elected, God, I hope I am this time, 3 times approved. But if I'm elected, one of my goals is to be as accessible, if not more accessible than Mr. Thurman. And I told him that, and he shook his head and said he wasn't sure because he was pretty accessible. And the man was. I contacted him on Sunday. He had no problem calling me back, whatever. But that's my goal, and it's a big one. And I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet. But that's what I want to do. I want to be accessible. And if any of you have this handout, on the front page under that ugly mug, on the very bottom is a phone number. That's my personal cell number I've had for over 25 years. If I'm elected, I'm not changing it, I'm not blocking it, I'm not doing nothing. You want to talk to me, call me. And if you don't want to go to town to meet with me, call me, I'll meet you at your house, I'll meet you down here, I'll buy you lunch. And if I say I buy you lunch, that means I'll buy you lunch, not the county credit card. Oh, you gotta have a thing or they're gonna yell at you. Because if I walk over there, then I get yelled at because I'm not in the view of the camera.
Okay.
Thank you for that.
All right. You know, we had problems, well, we still have problems with the property next door to Chilleens.
Mm-hmm.
They were building a service station and a motel. We have been having town meetings about this for years and years, and it just keeps changing from one person to the next person to the next person. Where's our supervisors? Where are they? Why aren't they here listening to us?
Well, one, I would say, were they invited? 2, if you have a community meeting discussing things like this, whatever it is, whether it's that, and to me, that's not a good place to put anything, especially access at 17 right there. That's horrible. But if you're going to discuss any community developments, any community issues, any community anything, call me. I'll be here. Now, I can't be everywhere at once. So if I have a scheduling conflict, I will send probably my executive assistant to be in my place. But as soon as I'm available, I will meet with whoever wants to meet with me. We'll talk about whatever the issue is.
Well,
I have nothing to do with that. I assume they went, I assume they went through the process. I know it's on commercial because we're standing in a commercial building, but. And that brings up a good point. We have a place in Cornville in the middle of a residential area. It's 52 acres, beautiful place. A lady by the name of Georgia Frontier lived it. She was, and I could get this wrong, but she was the owner of the LA Rams. And 30 plus years ago, 40 years ago, she bought it. Had the zoning changed. She was a little, well, not a little, she was a lot eccentric. She went in and she built a little western town thing. It's beautiful, nice little buildings and stuff. Well, she's since passed. Not too long ago, two gentlemen bought it. They come in and they're with their plan. In fact, they had a community meeting already. But they bought it. They want to come in, put 39 little homes in, and do this, that, and the other, tear some stuff down. It already had a golf course. They want to improve on it, put it in. And then they're going to leave the outside agricultural. They also want to put in a little treatment plant, sewer treatment plant. The whole community, the pitchforks and torches come out, everybody's upset, going on and on and on and off to this meeting, there was over 100 people. That is not the time to get upset about a project, because it's said and done. All they're doing now is a continuous use permit, they're going through the use permit process. It's already zoned for it. So what I tell everybody in your communities, please, 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 watch what's going on now. Watch what the zoning is. See who's changing what zoning to what. See who's buying what. They'll buy something, change the zoning, and you have to have a plan of what to do. I'd never vote for just a blank slate, here you go. They'd have to present a plan. But they'll change the zoning and sit on it 20 years, 30 years, whatever the case may be. If they got a lot of money, they'll sit there and wait till either they don't want to do their project or it increases so much in value they're going to make a lot of money and they dump it. That zoning goes with the property, not the person that went and got it. So please watch your communities. That's how a lot of things are happening. And then when it comes up and you see that public notice of hearing, it's too late. It's already been zoned and they're going to end up doing what they want to do. And you're not going to stop it.
I got a comment and a question.
Oh, please.
You said that Tom Thurman was kind of your mentor and you could do a lot worse. But I will tell you that the times Black Canyon City saw Tom Thurman were either at the parades where he was picking up horse manure or election time when he was shoveling.
That's the usual time.
And I signed his petitions. I called him the best little tax and spend Republican in Yavapai County. But my question is, what is the primary function that you'll be doing if elected, and what in your background, which is really varied, qualifies you for that, experience-wise?
Okay. Number one, Tom Thurman is not my mentor. Like I said, I want to be as accessible as he was. I didn't agree with a lot of what he did. And the show up at Sunday dinner things, what he did a lot of. In my area, he spent a lot of time in different communities. But accessibility is all I'm talking about. Not what the man did, not what the man voted for or didn't vote for. The supervisor's number one responsibility is being fiscally responsible. Watching the tax dollars. That's their number one, that's what they're there for. The rest falls under it. And that's all that managing all the departments, sitting on the boards, everything else. Their number one responsibilities are tax dollars. And what qualifies me for it? I've been involved in budgets with government money. I've been a business owner for over 20 years. It's all sitting quiet now and not active. But what qualifies me is two simple words: common sense. You can't just spend what you don't have and then go fleece the taxpayers for the rest of it. That doesn't work that way. So that's what I bring to the table. No, I do not have a financial degree. No, I did not complete college. I went to college, but I did not complete it because a little thing called life popped up. and a new wife and a new baby and working nights. And actually at the time, I was working undercover narcotics. So I was a very busy person, and college just didn't work out for me. I made it about halfway through, but I couldn't finish. And then after that, life just took over. But to answer the gentleman's question, no, I'm not a financial genius. We have people on the payroll that are. I know people that are. And it never hurts to ask for help. It never hurts to ask somebody what they think. You may not agree with them, but they certainly might have the right answer and point you in the right direction. But I have enough common sense to know when somebody's trying to pull something over my eyes and spend money that could be allocated somewhere else to something that we actually need instead of, oh, it's pretty and shiny and I just want it. And that's what qualifies me. Thank God you guys are talking.
Wiley, what I like about you is talking to you is like talking to one of us. And you not only have white collar experience, you've got a whole lot of boots on the ground, blue collar experience. And a lot of people that get in elected positions, they got a lot of college, book smarts, but they don't have common smarts with what goes on. And that's what I really appreciate you. And another thing, you don't give up.
No.
If I look back at Arizona politics, we had a governor that ran like 3 times before he got elected. His name was Evan Miko.
Yep.
But he got elected.
I voted for him.
Yeah, so I think on the practicality aspect, if you get elected, you're gonna serve our needs a whole lot better than somebody that's got book smarts. And I really appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I am probably to a fault very direct. I don't like talking to people and they sit there and beat around the bush and talk in circles. It's not something I enjoy, so I try not to do that, and I appreciate that very much. Anybody else? I completely got off track. All right. How am I on time? I got 10 minutes left. I bet we can burn up 10 minutes or I can be done. Okay. Now, one of my main goals, and down here, I don't think you guys, do you really have an influx of a lot of people, a lot of homes being built? It doesn't seem to me like you guys are really growing out a lot.
A lot of people have moved in the last few years.
Have they?
This young lady here has a question.
Oh, please.
What do you think about incorporating this town? Would it be beneficial to us?
I'm going to give you 2 answers. I'm going to give you my answer of what my personal feeling is, and I wouldn't do it. There's pros and cons. You have to look at both sides. But I think with your tax base, with the population, with everything else, incorporation wouldn't be a good idea. Now, as your supervisor, if this town come to me as a whole and said, we want to incorporate, hooray, I'll help you out. What can I do for you? You know, but you have to look at your tax base because you really don't have a lot coming in. You have one gas station for now. I mean, it's going to change probably. But for now, you got to look at what's coming in tax. And like Dewey Humboldt, they incorporated Supervisor Jensen was 20 years ago. I think it's about 20 years ago. And it is an absolute nightmare. It would be. That's where I would point you to. It's a nightmare. And there's people actually talking about disincorporation, which I don't even know how you go about that. That'd be something I have to look into. They have basically the same problem. They don't have a tax base, so they're kind of, it's a limited corporation. So they have some money coming in from this, that, and the other, but the county still has some things there. And that just causes a whole new problem, plus I won't even get into the rest of it. I would highly, highly, highly recommend anybody that's wanting to incorporate their community, go talk to them. Now, to solve the problem of why you don't want to incorporate is representation, services, blah, 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 blah. That's why you want to incorporate. For that, I would tell you, vote. Study your candidates really, really hard. See what they're about, see what they've done, if they're in a position to vote on things for a community, see how they vote. But study your candidates, know which way to go. And I think we're probably getting close. I don't look yet. And that brings me to another thing. If you notice, I have no endorsements. I did not ask for any endorsements, and there's 2 reasons for that. One, I'm not running on somebody's coattails. What somebody else has done for themselves, whatever, good for them. I had nothing to do with it. And I'm running on my own merit, not what they think, not what they try to make everybody else think. So that's why I have not asked for any endorsements, and I won't. I can get some if I want, but I'm not gonna do it. So that's my 2 cents worth. Anybody got any more questions before we run out of time? Okay, come on, one more. Somebody's gotta have some. All right, I think I'm close to time, I'm not sure yet. I see all kinds of motion back there. All right, I'll give it up. Everybody, thank you very much, I appreciate the time. Thank you for having us down.
Thank you for coming. Our next speaker is Retha. She is running for Justice of the Peace.
Thank you very much for having me here this evening. My name is Retha Patterson, is how it is pronounced. I know it's a whole life story. It's every day. I answer phones for a living, and let me tell you, it can be brutal. Anyway, I am running for Justice of the Peace. I am just here to tell you a little bit about myself. I have worked for the court system for 18 years. I have been working in the Mayor Justice Court. I started there in 2006. I started as a civil clerk, and I moved my way all the way through everything there is to do there. I've spent a lot of time as a courtroom clerk. I've worked in that 18 years as a weekend initial holiday clerk, sitting beside judges who are processing prisoners on the weekends when the regular courts are not in session. I've had the opportunity to work with numerous judges, different styles, different procedures, not procedures, but attitudes and styles. And I just feel like I have had the opportunity to observe a lot of different ways of getting things done. Everybody meeting the same end goal, but with their own style and attitude. I will say that I am from Mayor. I have lived in Mayor since 1978. Our family moved here from Phoenix, and we have been located in Yavapai County ever since. My parents are Ray and Julie DeMoss, very commonly known in our area. They taught me great works of service, and we give back to our community, and that's how we live. I understand what it's like to live in a rural area. I understand what it's like to live with little means, and I know the people of Yavapai County. A lot of them are known to me and friends to me, or just understand situations other people can be in and have compassion for that. A little bit about what's the point of all this experience in the court system. It helps me to recognize people and all that watching and sitting beside other judges. You know, if someone's illiterate and they're not going to tell you that they're illiterate, you have to pick up on the cues and make sure that they understand the process of the court and that they have their rights, and they might need a little extra hand to say, are you sure you understand the process? You have to reiterate to certain people and make sure that everybody has their rights reserved. Whether you speak English, whether you're from here, whether you're not from here, the courts have a duty to make sure that you are individually understanding what is happening to you in that court system. A court cannot give you legal advice. A court cannot guide you any way other than procedurally. A judge cannot change the laws. A judge cannot make up the laws. A judge has to follow the laws as they are written, and that is how they rule upon the statutes, United States Constitution, and the laws that also go hand in hand with each one of those, the rules that go hand in hand with each one of those laws. So I apologize, I also am not a politician, and this is a little past my spectrum of coming out here, and I apologize for that if I seem nervous. I am trying to do the best I can out here. I will say that I went from kindergarten to graduation from Muir High School, attended. I raised my 3 sons here, who also went the entire time in our community. They all went into the United States Air Force, all 3 of them. I'm very proud of my children, and if you would like to go ahead and ask me what we kind of do at the court, or I can just elaborate on what we do, I'll start there. We start with small claims matters up to $5,000. So those are matters that somebody owes you some money and you want it back. You don't want an attorney. It's under $5,000. You can come in and file a claim. We have civil actions, which are up to $10,000 in a limited jurisdiction court, which is what we are. Again, those can be self-represented, or you can hire an attorney to handle those matters. We deal with criminal misdemeanors, 1, 2, and 3. Which would include like DUIs, domestic violence, criminal damage, theft. We deal with petty offenses and county ordinances. So we deal with much civil traffic and criminal traffic. I mean, our jurisdiction is from the end of Rock Springs here all the way down to the end of Stone Ridge on the left-hand side. We go in towards Camp Verde. We have a part of Humbug Cove, Mud Springs, Breezy Pines, Pine Flats. I mean, the jurisdiction is massive for Mayor Justice Precinct. A little bit about working at Mayor Justice Court. I will tell you that I have learned from the Board of Supervisors that is current that we are the 2nd busiest court in Yavapai County for limited jurisdiction. And I want to just thank the Board of Supervisors who did get us 2 new clerks to come in as soon as the budget is approved, which is much needed because we've been understaffed for quite some time. And I would just like to say, the floor is yours. Any questions from you? Nobody? Okay.
I'm coming.
You're doing fine.
Thank you.
Could you tell me what the justice of the peace is? And do you have a law degree?
The justice of the peace, what the justice of the peace is or what the justice of the peace does. I mean, the justice of the peace is going to be administratively handling the court. So we're going to do everything from, being responsible to when and how to issue suspensions, warrants, in charge of the budget, the process, the staff, the flow of the court, the timeframes of the court, and a judge is managing all of these different types of hearings, kind of what I touched on a little bit, but a judge is doing an extraordinary amount of things that people don't even recognize, and it's quite an overwhelming learning curve, to be honest with you. I have been appointed a pro tem, which means I'm basically a substitute judge right now. I have sworn the oath to uphold that. I'm still in a learning curve myself. I have sat on the bench somewhat so far. I will be sitting and learning new types of hearing events as time goes by. And that's just so if the judge needs to take a break or go on a medical appointment or whatever, I can handle the matters that are on the docket. And no, I do not have a law degree. I just have 20 years working for the county, 18 years with the court, and I did go to the prosecutor's office for 2 years, worked in the charging unit. So I did learn a lot about how that process works there as well. And I would like to say, it is difficult for me to answer some of the questions that may be in your mind because I do have to stay independent and impartial of opinion. Okay, so thank you.
I've got a comment and a question. My comment is the fact you're not an attorney is a plus in my eyes.
Thank you.
But the question is, I'd like you to expand a little bit on the pro tem assignment that you have. How did you get that assignment? What qualified you for that assignment?
Well, just about mostly pro tems are usually attorneys. So in rural Arizona, pro tems can be experienced clerks that are elevated to that position. I did go to judicial orientation already, and again, I am starting to practice on the bench. I'm not sitting in the bench, the judge is still there. But I got put up by a necessity, essentially, because pro tems are very few in Yavapai County, and so sometimes they elevate the leads. Pardon? I was asked to be a pro tem. It went through, I believe the Board of Supervisors approved it. Sir, did you still have a question?
Anybody else? The eyes of justice is supposed to be blind. And I want to know that you also are not supposed to legislate on the bench. And I don't know if you're in that position, but I don't think it's a good work. But I would just like to know if you have extreme knowledge on the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all of these things that our country's based on, so you can be even-handed and take care of people who go before you and do things that are correct, and not do things that are outside of the law. So you just don't know.
Thank you for that question. The answer to that is my sole purpose and sworn duty is to remain impartial and fair. Okay, so I can't speak on a lot of different things, but we have rules, a book of rules, we have a book of statutes, we have the Constitution, we have all sorts of instruction that we are to follow by the letter. And so that is what I intend to do, to serve my community, and that is why I am running for office. I want to preserve the integrity of the courts in Yavapai County, in Mayor Justice Court. Anyone else? Okay, well then I'm gonna call it a day. I thank you very much for all your time.
Okay, my next speaker is running a little late. He's not here yet. So Kevin and Nick said they would talk some more and you could ask them questions.
Anybody have any more questions before we go? Sure you do. Ask me a question or I'll start talking.
Do we have nuclear fusion?
So we had a couple of questions. One was, does TSMC have its own grid? And the answer is not right now. They have service. They've been in process for many, many years, developing that. So that's something that happened even before our time. But I believe they are bringing in their own power generation to help supplement, but right now they're taking power directly from I believe it's the substation down by Palo Verde. So they use a lot of power. Absolutely. The other one was, I think somebody said something about fusion?
Yeah.
Nuclear fusion is one of those things that I hope I get to see in my lifetime. And we know it can function because we've seen it function for close to an hour. The problem is it's only an hour before it completely will destroy itself. So, but talk about the holy grail of nuclear reactors, that would be it, 100%. There's a lot of engineering and scientific study going into it. And like I said, I really hope I see a commercially viable machine before I die.
Me too.
Yeah. Yes?
Do you know the zoning is for the data centers? 'Cause I've seen things in other states where they put out a lot of noise. And people that are near these data centers are really complaining about all the noise and stuff. Is there, when they put those in, you can't have housing or something with it so close? Is there any rules on that?
I think a lot of that has to do with the various technologies that they use. You know, some of it is the water cooling makes noise. Yeah.
I was a city council member in Mesa, and every city has noise ordinances in place. Every air conditioning unit on every business, I don't care what business you are, you have to provide to the city any of your or all of your sound testing. So before you put an air conditioning unit in, you run it, or after you put it in, you run it, and then you have to do all your sound tests and turn all that information into the city to get approved. So I don't think there's, I would second guess somebody complaining about noise from a data center because they wouldn't have been able to get their certificate of occupancy if they didn't pass all the sound requirements that most local jurisdictions have.
And if there are problems, a lot of times there are ways to mitigate those sound issues, building walls that funnel the sound up and things like that. So generally, it hasn't been a major issue that we've seen. At least not here. Other questions? I'm surprised nobody wants to talk about Joya. Everybody's understand how that happened and why it happened?
What is it?
The Joya coal plant.
How about
So this is one of the things that people keep trying to run us through the mud for, but the reality is back, do you remember Navajo Generating Station? It was a number of years ago and it was shut down by the EPA and subsequently it was leveled to the ground. But at the same time the EPA went after that, which by the way, it was really stupid because they came after these haze rules, which are extremely subjective, and they said, oh look, we see haze in the Grand Canyon, it must be coming from Navajo Generating Station. Never mind the fact that prevailing winds go west to east, and it was 50 miles to the east, but hey, that's what Obama said, that's how he shut it down. At the same time, they went after the Cholla power plant. But to their credit, APS and all the other stakeholders said, you can't just come in and start shutting down all our generation. We're going to have rolling blackouts like California, and that ain't going to happen. They said, if you let us keep running without making us install all these expensive scrubbers and everything else, we will give you a date certain to shut it down. And that date was April of 2025. 3 weeks after they closed the doors, locked it, all the coal contracts were done, they shut down the coal mine itself, everything. Trump signs an executive order saying, we love our coal and we want to keep our coal plants open, including Cholla. So of course, we wet our pants. And then we got on the phone with the Energy Dominance Council and the Department of Interior. And this is more what Kevin did. I'm not going to take credit for talking with those guys. But basically they went to him and said, hey, we have a problem. This plant already closed. And they said, okay, well, what's it going to take to reopen it? So they came back and we all went to APS and we said, hey, what's it going to take to reopen Cholla? They said $1.9 billion. We said, you're full of crap, give us a line item breakdown. So they did. You know what the total was? $1.9 billion. And the reason is because it takes about $1 billion, over half of that amount, just to put scrubbers on the plant. The rest of it was reopening a coal mine, hiring all the factory, or all the coal mine workers and the workers for the plant itself. There was hundreds of millions of dollars of deferred maintenance, because why would they do all this maintenance if they're gonna shut down the plant? Makes sense, right? They don't wanna put it on your backs. So they deferred all that maintenance and everything. The total came out to be 1.9 billion. Back on the phone with the White House and said, hey, $1.9 billion, you guys, we can't as regulators put that on the backs of 1.4 million ratepayers. The math doesn't math. And they said, well, we didn't know that. And he said, well, do you have any grants or anything you can help us out? If you want us to reopen that, give us some money. They said, no, we don't. Okay, well, then we'll focus on keeping the other coal plants open. Just don't make us do this one because we can't afford to do it. They said, that sounds like a great plan, go do it. So we did. Now, I am going to tell you that we are currently in discussions with APS to try to bring that plant back online as a natural gas power plant. One of the things that Kevin and I started talking about after we were elected, but before we were sworn in, we started getting together all the gas companies and said, hey, what's up with the gas situation in Arizona? They said, we're fully subscribed. And we said, okay, go build another pipeline. And they said, well, that's easier said than done. So we were pushing on it for a number of years. And all of a sudden, you hear a few months ago where they're announcing a brand new pipeline from Texas that comes all the way through New Mexico, comes up to Phoenix, and stops. It will not go to California. So that's a good thing. They went out and did what's called an open season, which is where they go and ask everybody, how much gas do you think you're going to need off of this pipeline? By the time they were done with that open season, they had increased the pipe size from 41 inches or 42 inches to 48 inches, which is about 4 times the amount of gas, because we wanted so much of it here in Arizona. What that allowed us to do is renegotiate discussions about bringing Cholla back online. But also we have other coal plants like Coronado and Springerville that are slated to shut down because coal is just flat out too expensive and the EPA hasn't changed their rules yet. But what we just approved is converting those to natural gas. So now we don't have to shut them down. We can keep them open for another few generations and keep those people employed and keep electricity on our grid. So we've been doing a lot of good work in the natural gas and the coal industry, landscape in Arizona. Yeah.
The president said he wanted to use clean coal. Can you explain what clean coal is?
Clean coal is kind of a weird thing because all coal is clean at this point. You put scrubbers on, the air comes out clean. The left doesn't want to admit that, but there's a way to make all the coal that burns clean. So
there's some coal that it has a higher burn temperature on it. And so that's why it's clean coal, because it burns hotter, and so it doesn't emit as many of the pollutants. The mine that's up here up in Nava, that one is dirty coal. You get a lot of your clean coal right now out of Wyoming. In fact, our existing coal plants here, Springerville and Coronado, both are shipped in by rail from Wyoming, believe it or not. They get their coal out of Wyoming while Four Corners gets it from the Navajo Nation. We can't get it from the Navajo Nation to Springerville and Coronado because there's no tracks that run from there into the Springerville area. So all of it's trained in up from Montana, which is crazy. That's kind of the answer. But like Nick said, with all the CRs that they put on the plants now, everything it captures all the pollutants that come out now. So it's pretty much all.
If you guys get elected, what do you want to accomplish in office?
Good question. We want to, we were talking about the rest rules in the commission, and this is one of the reasons why we always say that the commission is one of the most powerful organizations in the state, because we have rulemaking ability that even the President of the United States can't overturn. And so only commissioners can bring stuff up for review and repeal. And so we don't answer to the governor, we don't answer to the AG or the legislature, we answer to you. And so when we overturn a rule, it takes about 3 years to overturn a rule. So when Nick talked about the rest rules, the Green New Deal, and overturning that, it took us 3 years. We started that process in 23, late 23, and we just put the nail in the coffin this past February. So it takes a good 2.5 to 3 years to overturn a rule. So one of the things, I mean, not only do we want to keep on doing what we're doing, but we want to start taking some of the things that we're doing and codify those into rules so that, heaven forbid, the Democrats take over the commission one day, that it takes them 3 years to overturn. So it allows us, as Republicans, allows us time to build a coalition that can come in and try to take out the Democrats and or push back with our legislature, with our governor, push back against some of the nonsense. So we just want to codify the good things that we're doing into rulemaking so that the Democrats can't just simply flip a switch and change everything that we've done over the last 3.5, 4 years.
Is there any dark money that's used to influence the commission?
Absolutely not. We are clean elections candidates. As a matter of fact, our ethics rules they don't technically require us to run clean, but it makes it very difficult to not run clean. And what that means is we can't take any money from any corporation or business. It can only be a little tiny bit of money from, before we get our public funding from individuals, a tiny bit of it. And a lot of that is the $5 qualifying contributions. What that means is the funding that we get is from speeding tickets and drunk driving. So if you guys have ever sped and got a ticket, thank you for contributing to our campaign. Please do not drink and drive, but if you do, thank you for contributing to our campaign. So that's how it is. We don't take, not while we're on the bench, not before we're on the bench, we don't take anything from any of the corporations, especially the utilities we regulate.
But when the first time we ran, there were IEs ran against us from the Democrats. We had, I think there was probably about $3 to $4 million that was dumped into the Democrats race by various groups like CHESPA, Sierra Club, and some of those that were trying to take us out. It was enough that they were putting billboards up across the state. They were doing, like they did mass marketing because for some reason, they didn't even know me, but they identified me as public enemy #1 for the environment.
That's right.
So I beat every legislator and congressman in the entire U.S. I was like public enemy #1. I had no clue how I got there, but I wore that as a badge of honor. Anytime that Sierra Club and CHESPA, because they're radical activists, environmental activists. So anytime that I show up on their radar, I'm like, good for me. But for fighting common sense. But we expect there's going to be, in the last race with Walden, Lopez, and Marquez Peterson, there's about 6 million, 7 million used, i.e. dark money that was used against them. Most of it came from, what's her name? Jane Fonda, dumped a bunch of money as well as Soros. They dumped money into it. We're expecting that there's going to be some money hit our race as well. It probably won't be in the 6 million, but we're expecting somewhere between 2 and 4 probably to come into our race against us. Because the Democrats are, our race is one of those. It's kind of like the last final grasp where the Democrats can push their climate initiatives, and they're attacking systemically attacking corporation commissions or PUCs across the U.S. So you saw that they just took out Georgia. So the very conservative Georgia PUC just flipped. So they're Democrats. That kind of emboldened the Democrats to come after us. So there's going to be money spent here. I just don't know how much.
Don't forget SRP. They had a big flip.
Look at SRP. SRP is a great example.
All right. Well, I think the next speaker got here, so that probably means we should get off the stage. So, especially since we were filling his time. So you have about 3 minutes left, Alex.
Thank you. We have Alex Colligan, he's running for Secretary of State. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for having me here. You know, this is like right outside of my district. So I was looking at them. Why haven't I been here before? I want to take my wife here on a date. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Alexander Collin, and I am running for Secretary of State to permanently retire Adrian Fontes, so he can go back to his true calling, representing the Sinaloa drug cartel in court. Now, unlike a lot of kids who want to be fun things like astronauts or cops or anything like that, I always wanted to be a lawyer. And so, I don't throw things at me. It's okay. Some people are weird. And so when I got out of law school, I got to come back to Arizona and do what I'd always dreamed of doing with my life. Now, I didn't know I was going to be an election lawyer, but a funny thing happened on the way to the courtroom. Because right after I hung out my shingle, there was a bipartisan group of people from Santa Cruz County, which was Adrian Fontes' home county, and they were becoming very concerned with the way their elections were being run down there. So they put in a very unusual public records request, not for documents, but for the metadata from their county central tabulator computer. Santa Cruz County told them to buzz off. So they looked around the state for a lawyer who was crazy enough to take on the fight. And the only guy they could find was only willing to do it because he was 8 months out of law school and didn't know any better. Me. And so I sued Santa Cruz County. And I tell you this story because my very first time walking into my very first courtroom on the very first day of my very first trial was also the first time I encountered the Secretary of State's office, because they tried to get involved, not in order to help me fight for your right to access your information on your elections, but in order to oppose us. But fortunately back then, they didn't have a lawyer half as good as I was, and we kept him out. And then something even more surprising happened, which is that we won. And when we did, and my clients got that metadata, they found out that Santa Cruz was printing early voting results before Election Day, which was a very eye-opening experience for a young lawyer. And so for the next 15 years almost, I've been going around the state doing election cases here and there. And eventually I became known to a lot of folks as the sort of unofficial help desk. Anytime something would go wrong or people just thought something was going wrong, I would get the calls. Well, one fine morning in 2020, when I'm lying in bed with my beautiful wife, I suddenly start getting a whole lot of calls. They're all folks from Maricopa County asking the same question. Alex, have you seen these instructions that the recorder is trying to send to everybody who votes by mail? Here's what they said. If you make a mistake on your ballot, you can cross it out, send it back, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it for you. And you see, at the time, the Maricopa County Recorder was not the magnificent Justin Heap, but rather a little-known man by the name of Adrian Fontes. And what would have happened if a voter had followed this illegal instruction is that their ballot would have been diverted from the general pool to his handpicked people, who would then have gotten to decide who that voter intended to vote for. Well, I have a little bit of a problem with this, because the way that I was raised, you get to decide who you want to vote for, not Adrian Fontes. And so I sued him, of course. What do you think I did? Took him to trial. Trial court judge said, looks like he's breaking the law, too close to an election for me to do anything about it. A common excuse. So I took Mr. Fontes up on appeal to the Arizona Supreme Court, where I whooped his butt. And, much more importantly, won every Arizona voter a right that you never had before, which is the right to challenge the unlawful act of an elections official. So look, thank you. I know I'm going to do a great job for you as your next Secretary of State. I might be the most qualified person to ever run for the office. But if I screw up, please feel free to sue me. You have my permission. You can use my case. Now, after that, I sort of reflected on my career and realized that one of the major reasons our elections were so screwed up is that the legislature obviously had no frickin' idea what they were doing when it came to making our election laws. So in 2022, I asked the voters of District 3 to send me down to the State House so that I could do a better job. And they did, right? But it was miraculous because I actually didn't really have a lot of time to campaign because while I was running for the House, a group of Mr. Fontes's buddies were busy trying to remove my client, Congressman Gosar, from the ballot because they didn't like his politics. Yes, the same people who parade around claiming to be the great defenders of democracy really tried to deprive voters of the right to choose to re-elect their incumbent congressman because they didn't like his politics. So I had to go back to the Arizona Supreme Court and actually defend democracy, which we did because I won again. But, like I said, even though I was a little distracted, we still managed to win that race, and I thought that was great until the Associated Press called the governor's race for Katie Hobbs 2 weeks later. And the problem is, as a politician, I'd run around with a big mouth making promises, and the main promise that I made to my voters was that I would start to clean up our state's elections. And after Katie Hobbs was declared governor, they started asking, as you might imagine, well, Mr. Colladin, how do you plan to do that exactly? And the truth of the matter is that I had no idea. But since I had made them a promise, and I take that pretty seriously, I figured, well, I'm going to think about it. I'm going to figure it out. And fortunately, I wasn't the only one. We had a great House Elections Committee that year. We were all trying to figure out the answer to that question. And so as we sent election bill after election bill up to Katie Hobbs' desk, only to be met with her inevitable veto, we didn't give up. We worked harder because that's what Republicans do. And we spent our time studying the state's election system to try to figure out what was wrong with it and what we could do to start to fix it. But we still had no idea how we were going to get Katie Hobbs to sign a bill that did anything like that. Fortunately, however, in facing this seemingly insurmountable task, I was aided by one superpower that very few of my fellow politicians possess, which is that I actually listen to the people who elect me, and I really think more politicians should, because then you can steal their ideas and everybody will think you're brilliant. And the one thing that my voters told me more than they told me just about anything else was that the problem with legislative Republicans was that we never knew how to use leverage when we got it. And fortunately, in what I can only describe as a miracle from God, Congress did what they always do. And they screwed something up. This is the part where you gasp, by the way. Yeah, in a fit of Trump derangement syndrome, they decided to change all of the deadlines for the 2024 presidential election, but being Congress and therefore idiots, they forgot to check the state election calendars before they did it. And as a consequence, two very bad things were about to happen. The less serious one was that all of our overseas members of the military from Arizona were not going to be able to vote in the primary. At this point, you're going, how is that the least serious of the two things? Well, let me tell you the most serious of the two things. There was a significant possibility that no Arizonan would have their vote for president counted because our electors might not have been delivered to Congress on time. And believe it or not, that terrified Katie Hobbs because she was absolutely convinced that those would be Biden electors that Arizona would be delivering, and besides which, it was congressional Democrats who had screwed up the calendar. And so I go, aha, this is the leverage my voters have been telling me to use. See, I learned quick. And so I went up to Katie Hobbs' staff and I go, I hear the governor's got a little bit of a problem, and I'd love to help her with it, I really would, but there's just some things I'm gonna want in exchange. For example, if you watched Kari Lake's 2022 trial, you know that up until that point, our state had no legally binding rules for how to verify the signatures of people who voted by mail. Law just said you have to compare them, and the officer in charge of elections has to be satisfied. So you can put them up on the screen, and it could be obvious to a blind 3-year-old that they don't match. But as long as the recorder says they're okay with it, there's nothing the judge can do. I didn't think that was so great though, so I put legally binding rules for how to conduct that process in the bill along with the fix to Katie's problem. And also I figured while we were cleaning things up, we probably ought to do something about the little Runbeck thing. You might have heard about it. It wasn't really a big deal. It's just that Maricopa County said that they delivered a certain number of ballots to Runbeck. Runbeck said they got a certain number of ballots, and the two didn't quite line up. But don't worry, they were only off by 20, 30, or 40,000. It's because we didn't have a chain of custody for late, early ballots. Ballots that voters get by mail and return in person to the polls. So we put that in the bill too, along with the fix to Katie's problems, along with fixes to other problems, like the fact that radical progressives in county elections offices were intentionally disenfranchising conservative voters, and just for fun, a requirement that every county in the state post that metadata that I had to go to trial for in my very first case, well, that they posted online within 72 hours of the close of tabulation, so it was easy for everybody to access. And of course, on the very last day that elections officials around the state were telling us that it had to go into effect to avoid catastrophe, we put it on Katie Hobbs's desk. And though it was absolutely the product of a remarkable team effort, I'll always be proud that it had my name on it as prime sponsor. And guess what? Katie signed it. She signed it. But I wasn't done delivering on my promise to the voters of my district. Because as my final act as a member of the state legislature, just this year, just 2 weeks ago, in fact, at about 2 in the morning, I and my colleagues in the House managed to accomplish what no one in DC has been able to do. After 2 years of effort, my Arizona SAVE Act passed and will be on your ballot for you to be able to choose to reform our state's elections and fix them permanently. So I'm running for Secretary of State for many reasons. One is that I can't stand Adrian Fontes. He tries to use his power to make some of our election laws to criminalize criticism of him, disenfranchise our members of law enforcement, and seize the power to throw out votes from entire counties. But another reason that I'm running is because I very much want to administer the Arizona SAVE Act when you pass it in November. Now, it's not going to come as any surprise to you that Adrian Fontes did not get to that office by merit. He got there because he was put there on the backs of millions of dollars in Democrat dark money funneled by George Soros and foreign billionaires straight into our state's election system. Look, I'm not going to have millions of dollars in dark money from George Soros. I mean, don't get me wrong. I called him and tried to ask him for a contribution. But, he never called me back. I wonder why. But that's okay because I'm a conservative and we never need as much money as the other guys in order to get elected because our ideas are actually popular. But I do need enough to get our message out and warn our fellow Arizonans about the genuine menace that Mr. Fontes poses to our constitutional republic. So please, on the back of my palm card is a QR code with a donation link, or you can go to my website URL, which is also on my palm card, and a donation in any amount that you feel able to make would be very much appreciated and will be incredibly helpful. But I want to end on a positive note here because we deserve that, right? Because of your hard work over the past 6 years. We have the biggest voter registration advantage in Arizona for Republicans that we've had since the Bush administration. Because you're volunteering and hitting the streets. We've rebuilt the get out the vote apparatus that we allowed to fall apart during decades of Republican dominance when we got a little lazy. Let's be honest with ourselves. We are poised for success in November. And so I am here to tell you that not only is the Arizona Secretary of State's race a race that we can win, not only is it a race that we must win, because as the chief elections officer of the most important swing state in the most important country on the planet, the road to the White House runs directly through that office, making it, in my opinion, the most important race on anybody's ballot anywhere this year. But I'm also here to tell you that it is a race that we will win with your help. Thank you. My name is Alexander Collin. I'm running for Secretary of State, and God bless the great state of Arizona. Primaries on July 21st. Let's go get it. Questions? Yes, sir.
Do you have a plan for the voting machines?
Well, it's been my observation that there has been, under our past several secretaries of states, a distinct lack of, well, them doing their job. So the Secretary of State does two things, right? It's not a policy-making position, only the legislature can make the law. But the legislature did charge the Secretary of State with prescribing certification and testing requirements for all elections equipment. Do you know that Mr. Fontes has not even laid down the very simple requirement that no microchips in our voting machines can be made in the People's Republic of China? That would seem to be a common sense thing that you might prescribe as a requirement for certification. And do you know how the machines keep breaking down at the polls every election cycle? It started when Mr. Fontes was county recorder, and he implemented a limited rollout of the vote center model in 2018. You didn't hear so much about it because it was only a beta test. But then in 2020, that was the first year that we had it county-wide. And of course, well, you know what happened. And in 2022, you know what happened. And in 2024, it actually happened just as bad as ever. But by that point, we were ready for it, and we had buses ready to go to move voters from place to place, okay? Because we already knew that there was going to be failure because of Mr. Fontes. The counties are not required to test the actual software that's going to be used on election day. They're not required to test the actual equipment that's going to be used in conjunction with each other on election day. They're not required to test the paper weight that's going to be used on election day, the ballot length that's going to be used on election day. They're not required to test the different loads that the printer might be under with the scanner and the tabulator on election day. In other words, we're basically testing our entire process on election day. Now, at a certain point, when you're that incompetent, when you fail over and over and over again, because you don't do the basic part of your job that everybody knows is necessary to avoid catastrophe, at a certain point it no longer matters whether you are malicious or just stupid. You're obviously not qualified to be the Secretary of State. And so I am neither malicious nor stupid. I will prescribe actual certification and testing requirements, as well as make clear that every county retains local control over the way that they would like to count their votes.
Is it gonna be one day?
Gonna be one day.
One day, that you have to talk to the legislature about. That's within their power, not the secretaries. Yeah.
That, you explained the process for eliminating mail-in ballots.
I'm sorry?
Mail-in ballots.
Yes, what about?
Is there anything in your wheelhouse as Secretary of State that you do something about the rid of mail-in ballots?
No, that is a policy, that is an actual substantive policy decision. That's for the people and the legislature to decide. The Secretary of State it's an executive branch position, right? It's like we all learned in civics. Secretary of State, as an executive branch official, takes care that the law be faithfully executed. If he starts making the law, well, then he'd be like Barack Obama. Okay, we can't have that. All right, well, very good. Thank you again for having me here to speak with you tonight. Again, my name is Alexander Collin, and primary election is on. Oh, yes, ma'am.
We can't hear her.
Okay, you're talking about elections.
Yes, sir.
So we've got this primary, you've got the general. What's gonna keep them from doing the same thing they've done before? Are you gonna sue them again?
Well, look, I have noticed that over the past several election cycles, and we've gotten better about this, especially in 2024, when Trump was very on top of this. But over the past several election cycles, people wait to address the problems with the system until after the election, and that never works. It never works. So I have been working to do triage on the election system so that I could run for Secretary of State, okay? There is a huge glaring vulnerability that I sealed just this year with the Pima County Early in-Person Vote Centers. In 2019, when Katie Hobbs was Secretary of State and my primary opponent was working for her, she put a provision in the Elections Procedures Manual that purported to allow counties to exclude observers from early in-person vote centers. Immediately thereafter, one county, and only one county, decided to do so. That county was Pima County. And their recorder is a radical, socialist-endorsed protege of Mr. Fontes. In fact, after Mr. Fontes was fired by the voters of Maricopa County, he went down to work with her and collect a nice paycheck until he was ready to run for Secretary of State. And the problem is, if you exclude observers from early in-person vote centers, well, theoretically, and I'm just speaking in hypotheticals here, if you were to have the dirtiest voter rolls in the state, and we all know, of course, that the Tucson metropolitan area would never have dirty voter rolls. But if you did, theoretically, and if theoretically you didn't have observers and you only had election staff that was hired by the radical progressive recorder, then theoretically you could check in voters who weren't supposed to be on the rolls and who were not even physically present, and you could print ballots for them and you could drop them in the box, and who would be there to say otherwise? So in order to have confidence in the system, it's obviously very important to have political party observers there. And, and that was important to me. And there's something I didn't tell you about that big election reform package I got Katie Hobbs to sign, which is that all of the election integrity wins in it, I remember to make those permanent. But there's one thing I forgot to do. I forgot to make the solution to Katie's problem permanent. And so, as a consequence of this happy accident, I had the opportunity to leverage her again this year. Okay, first I had the Pima County GOP go hire our old House General Counsel who worked on this issue for us when she was at the House. She went to Katie Hobbs, convinced her that this was so illegal to exclude the observers that if she let Mr. Fontes keep this in his Elections Procedures Manual, which she has to sign off on, that she was going to get sued and lose, so she forced her to take it out. Then the next day, Pima County said, okay, Mr. Collidan, you might have won this one, but now we're going to create a mobile voting unit, and we're going to put vote centers on the backs of trucks, and we're going to take them out to the middle of the desert, and sorry, we don't have space for the GOP observers on that one. That's when I used the leverage, because I had left it lying around, because I knew I was going to need one more thing from her to get her to sign a bill that clarifies that it doesn't matter what you call a polling place, you have to allow political party observers. So we did that. I've been talking to the Department of Justice for the past year, at least. They have committed that they're going to put some boots on the ground in Pima County. This election cycle, I'm a part of Justin Heap's legal team. He's a man I have the utmost trust and confidence in, and I'm working to restore his prerogatives to him because I would feel much more comfortable in early voting if I knew that he was in charge and not the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. And done a bunch of other things too to try to triage our state's election system. Now, can I tell you that everything is fixed? Absolutely not. I've tried to hit the most vulnerable points in the system. There's still going to be problems. Of course there are, because Mr. Fontes is in charge of our elections. But I have gotten it to the point where I feel that if we have the same overwhelming turnout that we had in 2024, right? If we make it too big to Rick, then we're going to be okay. And I know that we can do that because you guys are putting in the work to make that happen. Keep putting in that work, and they will not be able to overcome our advantage because the people of Arizona are on our side. Yes, ma'am.
My apologies, some of us came in late, there was another local meeting. I'm understanding, you were talking about confidence in the process of voting and what have you. I'm understanding that Arizona is looking at purchasing more machines, voting machines. Do you know anything about that, and where's the funding from that coming from?
Well, are you talking about my Arizona Save Act? Is that what you're talking about?
Explain your SAVE Act.
So my SAVE Act has universal government issued voter ID regardless of the way that a ballot is cast. It prohibits foreign funding of elections. It also defends our good election laws from Mr. Fontes' own competing ballot initiative, which they will use to get universal mail-in voting and day of voter registration, even though nothing in their measure says that. They're trying to be sneaky about it. And it will speed up the election results by providing, and I think this is the part that you're talking about, providing for on-site tabulation at each polling place. But what it doesn't say is how the tabulation has to occur. Counties have a choice. They can choose to count ballots by hand, or they can choose to count them by machine. If a county wants to do it by machine, then obviously they're going to have machines there. If they want to do it by hand, they do it by hand. But even if they use machines, it's much better to have the machines used in public, where there's a direct chain of custody and lots of eyes on the process, than to have all of those ballots brought back to the central counting place and run through a machine when nobody is there to watch. So that might be what you're referring to, but that is the way that that bill is set.
So your bill is very similar to the federal SAVE Act bill.
Yes.
But I was understanding there was gonna be more machines purchased, but you're saying every county will have an option to hand tabulate or use a tabulating machine?
They already have that option, and I was very careful to write the measure in such a way that it's very clear that we're not taking it away from any county. Every county board of supervisors can choose to do that. Now, our radical progressive AG doesn't share that opinion, but she doesn't know anything about the law. So yes, that option is preserved, and a county will still get to choose to count the way they want to count it, because people who are proponents of hand counting, they also want on-site tabulation. As I hear from the ones that I talk to, they want the ballots counted at each precinct polling place. Fine. The bill doesn't say anything about how you have to count the ballots. It just says where you have to count the ballots, which is at the polls in public, where the results will be faster and there'll be more eyes on the process. Anything? Yes, sir.
In Venezuela, Maduro was the one that got the voting machines, and we found out that they were all hackable, and he basically stole his elections, just like I think happened to Trump the second time he ran. If we're using voting machines, Smartmatic or whatever, what safeguards are we going to be doing to make sure that they don't get infiltrated? And if let's say you get 2/3 of the vote, but it turns out that you get 1/3, and 2/3 go to your opponent, how are we going to clean up these voting machines and know that they're not being hackable or getting on the cloud?
Sure. So there's two components to that. There's a before the election and after the election component to that. Before the election, obviously, you still need a mechanism by which to have a ballot match up with the entry, right? You still need an invalid registrant on the rolls. That's why the Department of Justice is litigating to try to get those voter rolls so that they can make sure that we're moving invalid registrants. Justin Heath, the Maricopa County Recorder, in his first year in office has already removed 300,000 of those names that should not have been on our rolls. That's over 10% of all of the names on Maricopa County's voter rolls. If you don't have an invalid registrants on the rolls, there's nobody to attach a vote to. Now again, am I saying that we've got the system perfect? Not even close. What I am telling you is it's better than it was, and your shoe leather is gonna have to do the rest. We need an overwhelming turnout. Now, when I'm Secretary of State, it gets much easier, right? Because right now, our current Secretary of State has purported to authorize counties to do something that the legislature has 3 times refused to allow, which is he has authorized our election equipment to be connected to the internet. Now, he will tell you, no, I didn't do that, okay? And it is true, he did not authorize it to be directly connected to the internet. What he did instead was authorize it to be indirectly connected to the internet through the use of an EMS gateway system. I will make it clear that EMS gateway systems are prohibited for use in Arizona because they are not legislatively authorized. My elections procedures manual will say that. And the other thing that he has done is, or failed to do, I should say, is he's failed to prescribe any real requirements for air gapping the EMS gateway system, or for air gapping the EMS system, the election management system. So I was touring the Yavapai County elections facility, and they were very proud of it. And they go, would you like to see our secure air-gapped server room? I go, yes, I would love to see this. I'd love to see this. And they're very proud. The 2 people who are giving me a tour are Republicans. They're very proud. They think they're doing it right. And I walk in there, and I pull out my cell phone, and I go, that's funny. You told me this room was air-gapped. But I'm seeing 10 Wi-Fi networks, and I have cell service. At that point, the elections director, who I suspect is rather of the progressive persuasion, comes running into the room and saying, no, that's not exactly what we meant. Oh, I go, this is gonna be good. What did you mean? And she goes, well, what we mean is the system isn't connected to the internet. I go, well, how do you know that? Does it have a SIM card? Oh, yes, but we turned that off. Okay, great. What about that phone jack right there sitting next to the EMS system? Oh, we have a camera on it. Oh, can it see me when I'm down here? Well, no. And how about the USB port? Well, we have that locked. Great. Does the camera show every approach to the USB port? And it went on and on and on and on. But these are not failures necessarily of a county level administration, right? There is a certain level of expertise that the Secretary of State's office is supposed to provide for the counties. We're supposed to tell counties how to set up a proper air gap, okay? Mr. Fontes is doing the opposite. He's telling the counties how to set up a system that is easy to access from the internet. And any system that can be accessed from the internet can be hacked. It's just that simple. And in fact, if that was not clear enough to everybody already, you might notice, if you follow the tech sector, that the Department of the Treasury just imposed an export control on an AI model called Mythos. And the reason that they did this is that they did penetration. The NSA did penetration testing with the Mythos system. And the Mythos system was able to, in a day, hack all of the NSA's classified information in one day. Humans could not have done that. Why do I tell you that? Because the NSA also probably does it a lot better, but still same basic concept. They also air gap their systems in the way that Mr. Fontes is having our election systems air gapped, right? Which is that they use a gateway system. So if Mythos can hack through the gateway system into the NSA, I'm pretty sure Yavapai County is not going to be such a challenge, okay? That's why we have to totally disconnect these systems from the internet forever if a county wants to use them. Otherwise, they can't be used. And that is within the purview of the Secretary of State to say.
Alex, I've got a question for you with a follow-up. It sounds like you're pretty far along running against Mr. Fontes. Are you running unopposed in the primary?
No, I'm running against 2 Democrats, one in the primary, one in the general. And I'm going to beat them both.
So you're not opposed by the Republican in the primary?
No, I'm not opposed by a Republican in the primary. I'm opposed by a Democrat in the Republican primary and a Democrat in the general. It's very odd, I know, but this is how badly they want to beat me, because as you can tell, when I get in there, the system's getting cleaned up. And when the system is getting cleaned up, that's a threat to an awful lot of people.
You didn't leave a lot of endorsements for them to pick up, obviously.
Yeah, and they haven't. And they haven't. Because everybody knows. I mean, okay, look, endorsements, they get thrown around a lot in politics, okay? And like, okay, what does it mean? Well, let me tell you, Abe Hamadeh, a former client of mine. Paul Gosar, a former client of mine. Justin Heap, a current client of mine, and served on the House Elections Committee with me, and we could go down the list. These are people who have endorsed me because they have seen me in action, and they know that I am the single most effective warrior for the integrity of our elections process in this state. And now I want to finish the fight with Mr. Fontes that I started 6 years ago when I took him to the Arizona Supreme Court, get rid of him, replace him, and actually do the job right.
I assume that you made this point, but I've phased out, and I'd like to get clarification. Voting machines.
Yes.
Whose wheelhouse is it to get rid of those completely?
The legislature.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Oh,
Wait. Oh, okay.
If you get elected, do you have a good working relationship with Andy Biggs?
When I get elected.
Well, I'm sorry, when you get elected, do you have a good
Yes.
working relationship? Because I think he's our best bet for governor.
I would happen to agree with respect to any of the Schweikert fans in the audience. So I know Mr. Biggs pretty well. I've worked on some issues with him, without getting too much into detail, legal issues with him. He's somebody I had admired since before I was in elected office. In fact, when I had my interview for the Arizona Freedom Caucus, one of the questions that they asked me was, what politician who is currently in office do you think you're the most like? And I go, look, I don't know who I am the most like. I can tell you who I most want to be like, and that is Andy Biggs. So one of the many reasons that I'm running for this office, besides the fact that I want our election system to be something we can be proud of, but a more personal reason I'm running for this office is because just like when you apply for any job, a big part of it is that you want to work with the best. And so you apply for the job where you think you're going to be able to work with the best. And I want to work with Andy Biggs so badly. I want to learn from him. I want to be able to see him in action more. His mind, his strategic mind is just amazing. And I want to be able to learn from the way that he operates, right? So, for a lot of personal reasons. Now, look, if somehow Schweikert overcomes the fact that he only polls at 10%, and I know him, he's a perfectly nice, fine guy, and we'll be happy to work with whoever the voters pair me up with, but on a personal level, I really do hope that it's Andy.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate it. Yes, sir. Thank you, Alex.
Now, I'll let everybody know. If you don't hear him as a speaker, then they never got back to me because I hit everybody on the election list. So I wanted everybody to come, but they didn't answer their email, or they didn't have a phone number, or they didn't message me back.
Or they were busy.
Yeah, or they were busy. Andy Biggs and, let's see, Eli Crane are in Washington. They can't make it, but tomorrow, or next week, on Tuesday, the 30th, Andy Biggs will have a speaker, and Jordan Peterson should have somebody to speak for him too. I'm working on that. So we now have Rodney Glassman to speak to us.
How's everybody doing?
Thank you.
Good afternoon, good evening. What are we, good evening? Good evening. I'm Rodney Glassman. I'm running for Arizona Attorney General. I'm running to protect our cops. I'm running to protect our kids. And I'm running to protect Arizona's prosperity. You think about it, we live in a crazy time right now. We live in a state where President Trump won Arizona by over 5 percentage points. But we also live in a state with an insane Democrat Attorney General who sued the Trump administration 42 times. 42 times in the past 16 months. And everyone always says, how could you do that? Well, think about it. If we go next door to the restaurant and we ask all the less active Arizonans, less politically active Arizonans, who does the Attorney General work for? Guess what they'll tell us? The governor. The average Arizonan thinks that the Attorney General works for the governor. But in Arizona, we're one of the 46 states where the Attorney General doesn't work for the governor. The Attorney General doesn't work for the legislature. Who's the Attorney General supposed to work for? The people. The people who put them there. The people who put them there. And I've been married to my law school sweetheart now almost 17 years. Her name's Sasha. We have 2 teenage daughters who are 15 and 13. And I describe the Attorney General as the wife or mom of government. Now, why do I describe it as the wife or mom of government? Because for those of you that are married, and those of you who are divorced, who's in charge? And think about this, because only the Attorney General can wake up in the morning and decide that she hates cops. You know, we have an Attorney General right now in Arizona who, remember, just like 90 days ago was giving speeches about when she thinks it's okay for Arizonans to shoot ICE agents. She was on TV doing that. Only the Attorney General can wake up in the morning and decide that police officers who pull someone over with probable cause shouldn't be allowed to ask for their driver's license because they might be discriminating if they ask about their citizenship. And so that's what Chris Mays believes. And how does she get out her beliefs? Well, she files lawsuits, she sends out press releases, and then she asks liberals across the country to send her money. Only the Attorney General can wake up in the morning and decide she hates kids. Think about this. We have an Attorney General right now who's filing lawsuits because she thinks that biological boys should be able to compete against girls. We have an Attorney General right now trying to get rid of charter schools, trying to get rid of education savings accounts, trying to get rid of private schools. And how does she do it? She files lawsuits, she sends out press releases, and she asks liberals across the country to send her money. We have an Attorney General right now in Arizona who's suing apartment owners because she doesn't think that landlords should be able to decide how much they charge their tenants in rent. She's suing farmers because she doesn't believe that water rights are property rights, and she doesn't like the types of crops that they grow. She's suing the Hefty garbage bag company because she doesn't like the way they design their boxes. And how does Chris Mays do it? She files a lawsuit, she sends out a press release, and she asks liberals across the country to send her money. And how many of you care about fighting election fraud? Anyone? Now, question for you, and I know we just heard from a Secretary of State candidate, but which statewide elected official is in charge of criminally investigating and prosecuting election fraud? The Attorney General. Yeah. But we have an Attorney General right now who's suing the Cochise County Board of Supervisors in southern Arizona. For what? For having the audacity to count their own ballots. And how did she do it? She filed a lawsuit, she sent out a press release, and once again, she asked liberals across the country to send her money. Well, on day one as Arizona Attorney General, I will withdraw Arizona from the 42 clickbait lawsuits that Chris Mays has filed against the Trump administration. I'll also have the power, yeah, thank you, it's true. I'll also have the power to rescind the political indictments that Chris Mays has been making against good Republicans across the country. Do you know Rudy Giuliani, the 85-year-old mayor of New York is currently under indictment by the Arizona Attorney General. We'll have the power to rescind all those political indictments that Chris Mays has made against good Republicans simply for supporting President Trump. But in order to defeat Chris Mays in November, the first thing we have to do as Republicans is nominate a Republican to run against her who has actually practiced law. Huh? Novel, isn't it? And think about this. In this Republican primary, we only have two choices. I'm a lieutenant colonel in the United States Air Force JAG Corps. I'm a reservist now at Luke Air Force Base. There was an article, thank you, there was an article today in the Arizona Republic. We released all 17 years of records for my entire military service. All my decorations are all online. You can go to my website, rodneyglassman.com. I've been a prosecutor for 17 years. I've prosecuted drug dealers, financial crimes, protected victims of sexual assault. Now as a lieutenant colonel, when I go out to Luke, put on my uniform, I run the active duty legal office of over 25 JAGs, paralegals, and support staff who provide all the legal services for the one-star general and the squadron commanders. I'm also a private sector attorney in the Valley. I was a commercial litigator and a corporate attorney for a decade now, a plaintiff's attorney. What that means in layman's terms is that I get hired by strangers with their own money to be their lawyer. In this Republican primary, my only opponent is the current state Senate president. You would know him as Katie Hobbs' favorite state senator because he's the one that just worked with her on passing the largest budget in the history of the state of Arizona. He'll be 50 years old in September. He's a part-time realtor and a part-time legislator who got his law license 28 months ago. He forgot to put that on his flyer, didn't he? 28 months ago. He's never filed a lawsuit as a lawyer. He's never prosecuted a criminal as a lawyer. He's never worked in a law office for even a day as a lawyer. And if we nominate a Republican to run against Chris Mays this November with zero experience, guess what we're going to get in November? 4 more years of Chris Mays. And Arizonans can't afford that because when it comes to the Attorney General's race and when it comes to this Republican primary, experience matters. Experience matters. How many of you have ever hired a lawyer before? Imagine if you needed to hire a lawyer to protect your family member. Would you ever hire a lawyer who had never had a client before? Think about why I'm running. I'm running to protect Arizona's cops, Arizona's kids, and Arizona's prosperity. Imagine if it was your cops, your kids, your prosperity. Would you hire a lawyer to protect you with zero experience? And experience matters because the Attorney General runs the largest law office in the state of Arizona. Over 400 attorneys and 1,000 support staff who provide all the legal services for every state agency. For every state agency. How many of you have your cell phones with you? Do me a favor, pull out your cell phones real quick, please. I just saw Superintendent Horn. He's one of my campaign co-chairmen. Good to see you. Thank you. Yeah, do me a favor, pull out your cell phones, open your web browser, and go to my website. It's rodneyglassman.com. www.rodneyglassman.com. You'll know you got there when you see a picture of me at the southern border down in Cochise County where I was on Friday. To my right is the Maricopa County Sheriff. Works? Good, okay. Yes. To my right, if you had a bigger screen, would be the Maricopa County Sheriff Jerry Sheridan. To my left is a Cochise County deputy. That's down in southern Arizona. And at the top, there's a link that says you can see my military history if you're interested. But once you get to that website, rodneyglassman.com, do me a favor and just put your phone back on the table. I just want to make sure you're there because my contention after I tell you this next part
is that the Attorney General's primary this July is the most important Republican primary we have. And the Attorney General's election in November is the most important general election we have. Because the Attorney General is the most impactful elected office in the state. Why? Because the Attorney General runs the largest law office in the state. 400 attorneys and 1,000 support staff, providing the legal services for every state agency. We have 60,000 plus realtors in Arizona. Did you know that? 60,000 plus. Now, crazy Katie Hobbs appoints the real estate commissioner. But guess how many lawyers the Department of Real Estate has? Any guesses? Zero. Well, you're cheating. You were the Attorney General. That's cheating. Well, but it's true. Zero. No attorneys because they're all assistant attorney generals. The registrar of contractors appointed by the governor. Some of you may have fixed a kitchen before, or a roof, or hired someone to do your pool. The registrar is appointed by crazy Katie Hobbs, but guess how many lawyers? Zero. They're all assistant attorney generals. I'm proud to have the Maricopa County Sheriff, Sherry Sheridan, as the chairman of my campaign for attorney general. I am also proud to have the superintendent of public instruction and the former attorney general, Tom Horn, as one of my campaign co-chairs. We elect Tom, and we'll re-elect Tom, to run the Department of Education. But guess who provides all the legal services for the Department of Education? Or let me rephrase. Let me guess who is tell me who is supposed to provide the legal services for the Department of Education. Any guesses? The Attorney General. But we have an Attorney General right now that won't even enforce Arizona's laws that say that biological boys should not be allowed to compete against girls. Any of you have been to a doctor before? The licensing boards for all the doctors, guess how many lawyers? None. They're all assistant attorney generals. If you ever go to the hospital, the Department of Health Services, guess how many attorneys? None. They're all assistant attorney generals. The Department of Environmental Quality, the State Land Department, Child Protective Services, if you care about kids. None of those state agencies have their own attorneys. They're all assistant attorney generals who are at-will employees of not the governor and not the legislature, but guess who? Are elected attorney general. But if you're still not convinced that this is the most important Republican primary and the most important general election this November, how many of you remember COVID? Remember COVID? We had a great Republican governor. We had a great Republican governor that shut down the gyms, shut down the churches, shut down the restaurants, and there was only one statewide elected official that would have had immediate standing to sue the governor over the illegal executive order. And who would that have been? The Attorney General. How many of you remember Prop 208? Remember the doubling of the state income taxes? When the teachers union went out, collected all those signatures to make Arizona one of the top 10 income tax states in the country? Remember that? There was only one statewide elected official that could have filed the lawsuit before the election to keep Prop 208 from being voted on. Who would that have been? The Attorney General. When he didn't do that, Governor Ducey went out and raised millions of dollars for the No on 208 campaign. Remember that? All the TV commercials? But it still passed. And when it passed, there was only one statewide elected official that could have filed the lawsuit to keep 208 from being implemented. And who would that have been? The Attorney General. But when he didn't do that, Governor Ducey had to go back out again and raise more money to hire the Goldwater Institute to file the lawsuit that should have been filed by who? The Attorney General. But if you're still not sold that this is the most important Republican primary and the most important general election in 2026, how many of you would like to elect a Republican president in 2028? Yeah? Okay. This is my last question for all of you. And I'm going to give you 2 hints because it's tricky. And the 2 hints are, it's not the governor, and it's not the Secretary of State. Got your 2 hints? Which statewide elected official that we're going to nominate in July and elect in November of 26 will be in charge of enforcing Arizona's election laws during the 2028 presidential election? Any guesses? The Attorney General. So, question for the room full of people that give a damn on a Tuesday night. It's Tuesday, isn't it? Yes, on a Tuesday night in Black Canyon, who came to hear speakers. How many of you learned something new tonight about the Attorney General's job? Anyone? If you did, I ask you to pick those cell phones back up real quick for me. And the reason I ask you to pick those cell phones back up is because if you learned something new, imagine how little your doctor, your lawyer, your teacher, your realtor, your pickleball partner, your mahjong buddy, imagine how little your neighbors know about this, the most important elected office in the state for protecting our cops, our kids, and our prosperity. So I need your help. I need your help. On the top right-hand corner of that website is a little red button. It says donate. Because chances are, if you learned something new tonight, you also have never probably contributed to an Attorney General's candidate. And the reason I need you to is because think about this. If you recommended a dentist to your neighbor, which dentist would you recommend? The one you go to. If you went to recommend a realtor, which realtor would you recommend? The one you go to. And so by clicking that button tonight, you will take this campaign for Attorney General from my campaign to our campaign. And I'm going to ask you all for since this is for many of you your first time contributing to an AG race, I'm going to ask you for a very specific number. And if you click on that donate button, there's even a button inside the button with this number. If it's too much, please contribute whatever you can. If it's too little, the individual max is $5,500. But tonight I'm going to ask you for $42. And there's a button on that page that says 42. Why am I asking you for $42? That's $1 for each of the 42 lawsuits that Chris Mays has filed against the Trump administration. And I urge you to do it tonight. Why do I urge you to do it tonight? Because last week it was $41. Because Chris Mays, all she does to build her resistance resume is keep filing lawsuits against the Trump administration. And you might be wondering, who funds the lawsuits that Chris Mays files? Our taxpayer, but more specifically, the Arizona state legislature. Who's in charge of the state legislature? Yep, you figured it out, my Republican primary opponent. So we need your investment tonight to make sure that we nominate someone that actually has experience as an attorney if we want to fire Chris Mays this November. Now, our state Senate, under the leadership of my opponent, about 4 months ago passed a resolution calling on Chris Mays to resign. I call that an unserious idea from an unserious person, because there's only one way that we're going to get rid of Chris Mays this November, and that's to nominate a Republican with experience who can fire her. And that's why I'm Rodney Glassman, and I'd love to have your support. And since, do we all agree now this is a job interview? It's a job interview for you to have the opportunity to hire a lawyer for 4 years for only $42? So I need your help, because I know this is a great room full of grassroots people that will, starting tomorrow, work hard on helping us get elected. And so if you have any question, legal, personal, or otherwise, please toss it out tonight. You got my campaign chairman sitting right here as well. I will answer whatever I need to, because I need you to be excited to spend the next 4 or 5 weeks helping me win this Republican primary. What's your name?
Greg Watts.
Greg Watts. Nice. I'm trying to look at your hat.
Oh,
nice to meet you,
You
Greg.
might say if that's okay.
Where are you from?
Originally Phoenix, but I've lived here for 26 years.
Good for you. Okay. What do you do up here?
Well, I'm retired now, but I retired from county government.
Okay. Greg.
Yeah. We're at war with radical Islam in Iran right now. And because of the Biden administration, we've been infiltrated by Islamists. And if you look at Mondawmin in New York, they shut down the streets, they put their prayer mats out, they got their loudspeaker going. Europe is under siege by the Islamists, all the stuff going on. Texas got mosques being built all over.
What's the question, Greg?
Okay, my question is, if we get invaded in Arizona and they try to change us, try to change who we are, and they create lots of chaos and violence and everything else, is this anything that an attorney general can do to address, to keep our streets safe from Islam?
Thank you for that question, Greg. Greg, the Attorney General is the chief law enforcement officer for the state of Arizona. Each of our 15 counties has an elected sheriff and an elected county attorney, but the answer to your question is yes, because the counties are arms of the state. So at the end of the day, the backstop for enforcing the laws of the state of Arizona is the elected Attorney General. If you're down in Pima County, where the sheriff refuses to pursue investigations or the county attorney refuses to put charges for it, the Attorney General can reach in and do that. And in other counties where we have county attorneys and sheriffs that want to do their job, the Attorney General's job is to help provide resources to support them. And then if you are convicted and sentenced in one of those 15 counties and you appeal your sentence, it goes to the state. So who's in charge of making sure that our convictions stand? The Attorney General. So thank you for, now, Greg, question for you. If there were two people applying for this job, and one had been a prosecutor for 17 years, and the other, since getting their law license in December of 23, had never prosecuted a criminal, which would you hire to keep your family safe? Because that's the question that you're going to be asked when you receive your ballot tomorrow. No, Greg, there's two of us. You're going to, oh, thank you, Rodney Glassman. There you go. Good, making sure. Thank you, Greg. And next question, what's your name?
Stan Cawthorn.
Stan
Cawthorn.
Cawthorn. Where are you from?
Right here in town.
Beautiful.
Couple of decades. Your opponent has made a lot of very interesting claims, and you've addressed some of them. There are a couple of them that I'd be interested in your observations on. He says he's endorsed by current attorneys generals, but gives no names. We got one right here. Can you name the attorneys generals that are supporting him?
I am endorsed by and have as my campaign co-chair the only, and I don't want to jinx you, the only living Republican former attorney general in the state of Arizona. Tom Horn. So if you're looking for people from other states that don't represent us and who have never represented us and who have never spent extended periods of time with my opponent to know that he got his law license 28 months ago, I'm sure you'll find some, but none of them live here in Arizona, none of them ever worked in Arizona, and none of them have ever prosecuted in Arizona. What's your next question?
The next one is conservative record. Says something about you made a lot of party switches, donated to Dems, and you have a pro-abortion history.
Beautiful. I love this question. How many of you voted for President Trump? How many of you voted for President Reagan? Like President Trump and like President Reagan, I left the Democrat Party. I left the Democrat Party June 16th, 2015. Stan, you remember that day? You do. The day that President Trump came down the escalator. I can tell you where I met my wife, in law school down at the University of Arizona. I like talking about my two teenage daughters, 15 and 13. In fact, if you go to my website, you can even see a picture of my family at rodneyglassman.com. I consider that conservative. I consider it conservative that I've served almost 2 decades in uniform. I consider it conservative that I've made a living and fed my family paying taxes in the private sector. My opponent, because of the fact that he got his law license 28 months ago, can't talk about his conservative accomplishments because all they're made up of is pushing a button. Just like he just pushed a button after negotiating with Katie Hobbs to pass the single largest budget in the state of Arizona. How many of you pay taxes? So that what you'll notice about all my opponent's flyers is that you used it great when you stood up and said, I've lived here for decades. He likes to talk about things from decades ago. And as you notice, he never puts any references on any of his materials. Say it again. Yeah, at the end of the day, you're hiring a lawyer to protect your family, to protect your cops, to protect your kids. And I'm the only one that talks about myself when running around the state. What he likes to do is a little tomfoolery. He likes to talk about the things that he's done. He's never even filed a lawsuit as a lawyer. He's always been the client, paying the lawyers with our tax dollars. So the analogy I use, it's like me getting a haircut 3 days ago and then giving speeches that I'm a barber. My wife would call that lying. But thank you for that question. I don't even know why he passes out that flyer other than to confuse people. Next question. What's your name?
My name is Tom.
And where do you live?
I live here.
Wow.
Yeah. What?
How long have you lived here?
Not long enough.
Where are you originally from?
6 years, San Diego. But
San Diego?
Well, now that was like 94. I was Phoenix Flatlander for 24 years. So my question is, what the power of the Attorney General has over foreign power to buy our dirt? The Chinese buying our dirt, any other country buying our farmlands or anything, owning our property in the United States. Does that office have any authority to stop that in this state?
So Tom, the Attorney General enforces the laws of the land. So whatever laws are passed by the state legislature, it's the Attorney General's job to enforce it. But I'll give you a good example. You've been reading a lot in the newspaper about the state land. Companies coming in and they rent the state land and they use it for this and they use it for that. Well, Tom, the state legislature could pass laws for the state of Arizona on how to utilize, regulate, mitigate, whatever they want to do, the state land, and then the Attorney General's job would be to enforce those laws. But in order to enforce laws, wouldn't you want to hire a lawyer that's actually had a client before? But there's more to it than that even, Tom, because remember I talked about what I'll do on day one. On day one, I'll rescind the political indictments. On day one, I'll withdraw those 42 lawsuits. But the next 100 days, as Attorney General, my job's going to be to protect us, Tom, from the legislature. Think about it. There's 90 members of the legislature. They make $24,000 a year. They're very well-meaning people. Do you know how many good ideas the 90 members of the legislature came up with last year to make our lives better? Touche. Over 4,000 bills were presented by the state legislature. That's very efficient of them, right? All these wonderful ideas to make our lives better. But does anyone know how the camel was invented? 3 legislators got together to design a horse. It's a true story. And because what happens is the only people in state government that get their own lawyers is the legislature, Tom. You listening? Okay. And so here's what happens. The legislators get together, they come up with these good ideas, but you know what 3 questions the legislators never ask? Is this constitutional? Is it legal? Is it enforceable? Does it accomplish what we want it to accomplish? 4 ideas. And guess, Tom, which state elected official is in charge of telling those legislators the answer to those questions? The Attorney General. Thank you. Next question, ma'am. Tell me your name again.
Lori.
Lori, there you are.
So I used to be a registered Democrat.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Everyone, give a hand to Lori.
We all learn, right? So,
The good news is my opponent doesn't want your vote.
well, I gotta vote for somebody. So, you were talking about endorsements
Yes.
earlier. I thought I saw something on Facebook where our wonderful President Donald J. Trump shared something of yours.
Yeah, well, he didn't, yes, I like that, thank you.
Absolutely.
So
Share.
So does everyone remember Majority Whip State Senator Sonny Borelli, who during the 2020 election, when the Attorney General wouldn't do his job of opening an investigation into the election, he refused to secure the ballots, he refused to investigate. Remember in the state legislature had to try to do something, Karen Fan, who actually, Karen is my third campaign co-chair along with Tom, the sheriff, and then Sonny, Gunny, retired Gunny Sergeant Sonny Borelli, who's now on the Mojave County Board of Supervisors and who's been a friend of mine since I was on the Tucson City Council, long time ago. Sonny, the day after the legislature signee died, otherwise known as the day after my opponent could no longer hurt Mojave County, endorsed our campaign for Attorney General. And the next day, I was on June 13th. The next day.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yes, it's because Sonny's a fighter. Sonny's spectacular. The very next day, June 14th, it was Flag Day. You know what else it was?
His birthday.
President Trump's birthday. And somewhere between the UFC fight and working on Iran, the president took it upon himself to take Sonny Borelli's endorsement of our candidacy and repost that on Truth Social. So I am proud that the president, on his birthday, reposted Sonny's endorsement of our candidacy.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
That's
huge. It's quite
huge. I just wanted to have you share that.
I
That's
appreciate
amazing.
that. It's quite an honor, and it's amazing. Sonny's we have some tremendous fighters that are championing our campaign. When I say champion our campaign, like the president reposting that post, like Congressman Paul Gosar. You all know Congressman Paul Gosar, the dean of the Arizona delegation. It's very telling because Congressman Gosar has endorsed Andy Biggs for governor and me, Rodney Glassman, for attorney general, because he says we are the two Republicans that he trusts will do the job that he's hiring us to do.
And you're in Paul Gosar. We love Paul. We miss him dearly.
Yeah, we're going to be traveling the River Cities together in 2 weeks. He's spectacular. He's a huge champion of ours because he wants to have an attorney general that can protect us no matter who the rest of the elected officials are. Thank you for
So two
that.
last things.
Yes.
I really respect your experience.
Thank you.
So thanks for bringing that to the table. And then lastly, before you leave, could you share a short prayer with us? I've seen you pray so many times, and it's so moving, and I think we would all appreciate it.
So I'm happy to. If that's the last. Are there any other questions?
I think we're sold.
Well, there we go. Well, I appreciate that. My daughters will appreciate it because I get to go home. I get to ask them how their day was. They get to tell me how I'm annoying, and then I get to go hang out with their mom. So it's great. But we have a lot going on in our country right now, but we're very blessed to have President Trump, who's been a spectacular advocate for Israel. And so what I'd like to do is just chant real quickly and then say good evening and give the superintendent his due. But I will chant for you Shalom Rav, which is a Hebrew prayer for peace. So thank you for asking. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech
לך לקדושה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני עושה השלום.
And what's important, it kind of goes back to the first question, and that is anti-Americanism is rampant right now in our country. And the reality is if we want to craft laws like they've been doing in Texas and other states, if we want to have law enforcement officers that feel comfortable enforcing the laws of our state, if we want to make sure that whether they come for the Saturday worshipers or the Sunday worshipers, that we have safe communities, then we must elect an attorney general that knows how to do the job and who believes in the importance of faith. So I appreciate your support. I'd love for you to consider joining our team. And this is kind of exciting because tonight's the last night that Tom or I will get the chance to visit with Republicans who don't have a ballot in their hand. So thank you for sharing tonight with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tom Horn, Superintendent for Education.
If we have yard signs, we're gonna leave them. Tom, thank you so much for your support.
Hey everybody, our last speaker is not going to be able to show up. Tom is our last speaker. Give him all your attention, he deserves it.
So Rodney told you that I'm a former attorney general, which means you know something about me that I usually try to hide, which is that I'm a lawyer. So I'm going to tell you a story about a lawyer. A lawyer, a doctor, and an engineer get into an argument about which of those three is in the oldest of those three professions. So the doctor says, well, God created Eve from a rib of Adam, and that was the first surgery, so surgery is the oldest profession of those three. So the engineer said, yes, but God created the heavens out of the chaos, and that was a great work of engineering. So engineering is the oldest of those three professions. And the lawyer said, well, who do you think created the chaos? Before I get started, I promised to do a plug for Head Coach Yola. I think he's running in the area where you guys live. And he's a very conscientious guy. He'll do a great job. I endorse him. I think he's a great guy. I am the only one in statewide elected office who's fighting for the normal against the left-wing crazy. For example, as Rodney made some reference to, I'm in court fighting to keep boys out of girls' sports. It's something the Attorney General should be doing. She refused to do it. She must think boys should be in girls' sports. So I had to do it, spend education money on it, but I'll take it to the US Supreme Court if I have to, because we are not going to have boys and girls sports in the state of Arizona. I started fighting against critical race theory in 2008. Some of you may remember when I put a stop to it in the Tucson Unified District where they were teaching critical race theory, and it was an obscenely racist program. They had a sheet that they drew a line down the middle. On the left side were the qualities of whiteness, and on the right side were qualities of people of color, and all the qualities of whiteness were negative, like they interrupt too much, that kind of thing. So I wrote a bill for the legislature to put a stop to it. They passed it, I enforced it, and we got rid of critical race theory in Tucson. Now, I felt like a voice in the darkness because most people weren't interested. I put out press releases, nobody would run anything. But now we have as our president Donald Trump, who's helping me to fight against DEI. And I have told our schools, if I find out you're doing DEI in your school, I'm telling the federal government, and when they authorize me to, I will, with pleasure, cut off your federal funding. I led the fight to get cell phones out of the schools. Now, the first time we passed it, if you can believe it, our Democrat governor vetoed it. Can you imagine why anyone would veto something like that? So whenever I was on TV or radio, I would say to the audience, please write the governor, ask him not to veto it next time. We passed it last year. This time she didn't veto it. Cell phones are out of the classroom so they can focus on learning. On school safety, I have increased the number of police in our schools in 3 years from 117 to almost 500. When I took office, my nightmare was that some maniac would invade a school, kill 20 kids. It's happened in other states. It could happen to us. And the kids would be gone. The parents would never recover, which I know because I lost a daughter. So I've been fighting really hard to get police into our schools because we owe it to our kids and to our teachers and our staff to keep them safe. There are no massacres in police stations because they can protect themselves. We owe it to our students and our teachers and our staff to protect them, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I've been a proponent of parental choice of schools since I was in the legislature. It was when charter schools were first starting, and the Senate had passed a bill, believe it or not, it was a Republican Senate, to limit the growth of charter schools. The House bill didn't have that, and I was chair of the conference committee to resolve those two bills. And the first thing I did was to kill the provision that would limit the growth of charter schools. I thought the parents should have as few or as many as they want. The market should prevail. And as a result of doing that, when I left office the first time I was superintendent, Arizona was #1 in the country in the percentage of their students that were in charter schools. Florida was #2, and a lot of people enjoy that because Florida likes to brag about being #1. But on this one, Arizona's #1 and Florida's #2. And in the last 3 years, under my administration of ESAs, our vouchers, we've increased the number of students involved from 11,000 to 104,000, and still growing. Now, when I was elected, let me tell you, my heroes are math teachers who love math, history teachers who love history, and so on. And some of them came to me after I was elected, before I took office, and they said, we want to teach our subjects bell to bell. We love our subjects. But under the administration of my predecessor, who was a Democrat, there is an ideology of social emotional learning, and the administrators force us to play what they described to me as dumb games with the kids. And I said, no longer, under my administration, teachers are supposed to teach their subjects bell to bell. It's all about education. Every educational minute is precious. And that's the atmosphere I tried to bring to our schools. Now, I felt like if I was saying that to the schools, I need to help them with their academics. In fact, I had a letter from somebody who counseled schools that were that were behind, who wrote me a letter and said, schools have not had the help of the Department of Education in many years. All they do is sit in judgment of them. I said, well, my philosophy is the opposite, and I adopted this mission statement. The Department of Education is a service organization dedicated to helping the schools raise academics and to empower parents. So let's talk about what I've been doing to help the schools. We have something called Project Momentum, where people from my department go out to the schools. They help the principals and superintendents with leadership. They help the teachers with teaching. And one of their projects was the bottom 5% of schools, and now 80% of those schools are no longer in the bottom 5%. We adopted a school in a poor neighborhood. People from the Department of Education went there every week. In 1 year, we raised their math scores 27%. And we proved that poor kids can learn just as well as rich kids if they're properly taught. I provided free tutoring for anyone in the state who wanted. I told the state, any parents who tell me they want to have tutoring for their kid, they will pay for it. You can have tutoring for free. So where do I get the money to do that? That's expensive. Well, my predecessor, as I told you, was a Democrat. She gave money to institutions whose work would not increase academics. So I clawed that money back. You can imagine the enemies I made. But it provided enough money for us to provide free tutoring who asked for it, and a number of students made 6 months progress in 1 6-week session of tutoring. Now, my main job is to help prepare kids to do well in college, but not everyone's going to college. So I have vastly expanded our career technical education program. And we started a program called the Student Industry Partnership. Margaret Dugan, who's my chief deputy, came up with that name. And we made it, I'll tell you what happened. CEOs came to me and said, one of our problems is there's a lack of skilled labor in our state. So I said, I'll make you a deal. I will get you skilled workers. I have access to 1,200,000 kids. In return, you will teach our career technical educations what skills they need to get a job right out of high school that pays well with your company. And so we got 40 of Arizona's largest companies to join with us in that partnership. Companies such as TSMC, the Taiwanese company that makes semiconductors not far from here. Debbie doesn't like them because she lives up there and they increased her tax. And so we did we divided the state into 11 parts, and we would do a traveling road show. And if a company wanted to hire in a particular area, they would go there. They would meet with the CTE teachers, career technical education teachers and administrators, and they would tell them what skills they need to give the kids so that right out of high school they would get a well-paying job with their company. And we've trained leadership. You show me a great school, I'll show you a great principal. So we started classes for principals. After the first one, we said, how many people here would recommend this class to your colleagues? 99% said yes. So it became greatly oversubscribed. We had to greatly increase our number of classes. And after every class, we asked the same question and got the same answer. Would you recommend this to your colleagues? 99% said yes, every single class. So we expanded it not to other leaders, not just to other principals, but to superintendents, to school board members, and to teachers. And we have a lot of classes going. Our whole first floor, our conference rooms are filled every day with people who come from different classes to get the skills they need to be good teachers or good leaders. But there's a lot more work to do, and I'm up for re-election, and that's why I'm asking for your support. Thank you very much. Yes, questions? Any questions? Yes. I'm not gonna ask your name, I'm just gonna answer your question.
I'm not sure if this is in Arizona or not. I've heard about this in other states, but with teachers, if they get the proper training and certifications, and teachers wear concealed weapons in the classroom.
Yes, when I was Attorney General, I proposed that to the legislature. What I said was, every principal chooses somebody in their school, hopefully a retired police officer or ex-military. We have a program called Troops to Teachers. And then we'll give them free training so they can have a gun in the classroom to protect the schools. It failed in the legislature. The Democrats all voted against it. And there was one Republican who voted against it because he was in the business of supplying food to the schools. And I thought that we could do it better ourselves. And so he ran for the legislature to just vote against me on everything. So we didn't get it through, but I'm a big advocate. There should be somebody with a gun in every school to protect the students and to protect everybody here. I don't know if I said this, there are no massacres in police stations, right? Because they can protect themselves. We owe it to our people in our schools to protect them. Yes.
This is more of a comment than a question. I've been aware of your public service for many, many years. I haven't always agreed with it. I think you've done a stellar job as superintendent. And I would like to know what your vision is for the ESA program going forward.
Well, the ESA program expands every year. More and more parents are coming to us. And I have to defend it. I get attacked more on ESAs than anything else. And what I say is this: we have a family with 3 children. 2 of them are doing just fine in the neighborhood school. But the 3rd child's needs are not being met. So the parents can now find a school that does meet that child's needs. And I don't understand how anybody could say the parents don't have the right to do that unless they're so immersed in their ideology that they forget about the needs of the students. Now, there was a bill at the legislature to give us $4 million so that we could hire more people to check the expenditures under $2,000. It's only 2% of the total dollar volume, so it's been exaggerated. And we get the money back. But still, we want to do it right the first time. And the $4 million would help us. It would enable us to hire 40 more people and put $1 million into artificial intelligence, which we're developing, which will make us perfect. So we need to do a better, unfortunately the bill failed. All the Democrats voted against it, only 2 Republicans voted against it. So I'm hoping next year the bill will pass. We've got to have, we're operating on the same number of people that were designed when the program had 11,000 people. We haven't had any increases. And we've taken a cut in our funding this year. It's creating a real crisis for us. So we need to get the legislature to properly protect this program, because this is the program that enables parents to choose the best school for their kid.
The teachers union is national, and I know there's been a big push to make it state and not be federal, because like when COVID-19 came out, they wanted to shut the classrooms down and everything else. And I was wondering, do you think we're better off with the teachers unions being state-run and not nationally?
Well, I don't like them either way.
Amen. Well, then we should get rid of them.
Yeah.
You're for that, right?
Yeah.
Is there any way we can do that, or is that like
I
the
don't know
president
that
has
we
to do that?
can, no, but but I'm letting you know my emotions. Yes. No. Okay, anybody else? If not, thank you very much. You're a great audience. I love Yavapai County. I've come here more than any other county, probably even more than Maricopa. So thank you all very much.
for coming. We will have another meet and greet June 30th at 5 o'clock, right here. And all different candidates. It'll be the same. So have a good night, enjoy it.
Thank you, everybody. Don't forget to watch the Black Canyon City Show.
If anybody wants a sign.
Yeah, signs are up here. You guys can come and grab a sign. It's on Rumble. It's on Rumble. You go to BCC Show at rumble.com. You may or may not like it. It's BCC Show.
Thank you.